Return to the past with a warehouse. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 351 Backbone. The scholars almost broke the door of the county governor. They came to complain about how insulting Li Ju was. If they didn't stop him, they would go to Wenlin Prefecture, the seat of Ludong Road, to cry for the saint. After listening for 2 days, County Governor Khan couldn't stand it anymore. He politely concluded, "This is the intention of Feng Ranghao, which is also the intention of the emperor. I can't do anything. Whoever can control it should go. Anyway, I won't go. It means don't try to use him as a gun. He is not a fool. He will never do anything to offend people." Li Ju didn't break the law. The Confucian scholars couldn't do anything to County Governor Kang, so they wanted to stop Li Ju. That day, they mustered up the courage to go to the door. At the door, they saw Li Ju helping a farmer tie up a bull. Such a big bull was stuck in the tunnel, and Li Ju easily dragged it out. Everyone compared their thin arms and legs, and retreated at the speed of light. If you can't beat them, forget it. In the first 2 days, all those who came to sign up were poor scholars and old students in the city, the kind who were in their 50s or 60s, and could barely make ends meet. Later, there were farmers from the surrounding villages, who had studied for 2 years, not many, only 2 or 3. There were not many such people to begin with, and the whole day was gone for the registration, and the villagers worked day and lived day, so it was difficult to spare this time. Li Ju thought that with the semi-public opposition of the Confucian scholars, it would be enough, if 10 or so people signed up, but on the last day, he got some surprises. On the day when Li Ju's notice was posted in the countryside, farmers and farm women passed by numbly, and those who could recognize the characters just glanced at it and passed by. In several villages with relatively strong clans, there were clan schools and village schools, and the private tutors were all scholars who failed to pass the imperial examination or students who failed to pass even the examination of a scholar. They twisted the announcement to their own meaning, and then taught the students who were sent by their parents to study. You will all take the exam to become high-ranking officials in the future, and you must not be deceived by such petty gains. Once you become a clerk, you will never be an official again. The students nodded, like pecking at rice. However, that was a super lucrative position with 1 pound of rice, 1 ounce of silver, and 3 pounds of meat every month. So the next day after the notice was posted, the discussion among the farmers and farm wives turned to who met the requirements. Whose father can read, so why not give it a try? There's nothing to lose anyway. Xiao Shan passed the exam and became a student, but he didn't continue his studies because he was poor. He seems to have been farming for more than 10 years. He is the most suitable, and I think he will make it. By the way, has Yu Yaoniang ever been to school? She farms well, but she's a woman. They didn't say that women can't go. Besides, if you sign up, you can get a white bread with meat for free. The school has also changed. Under the eaves during breaks, on the way to and from school in the morning and evening, the children and teenagers chattered. "We haven't seen anyone pass the exam in several generations in our village. Will it be okay if it's our turn? Xiao Song will definitely make it. Xiao Song is the smartest. I think that doctor is pretty good. There used to be a high-ranking official who was a doctor. 3 pounds of meat are given every month. It would be great if we could have it. If I had 3 pounds of meat, I would definitely share it with everyone. It's not even dark yet and you're dreaming. Dreaming. Hey, Arming, why are you silent? No, nothing. I have to ask for leave tomorrow. My mother is taking me to visit relatives. I was wondering what to do with the missed classes tomorrow. What a coincidence. I'm also asking for leave tomorrow. My mother asked me to go pick grass. On the last day of registration, Huzi's father came, Xiao Shan came, Yaoniang came, Xiao Song came, and Arming came. Even the private tutor came to register with his head covered. The number of applicants instantly broke through the 30-person mark, and Li Ju was very satisfied. His requirements were not high. First, they must be able to read. Second, they must be obedient. Third, they must not look down on farmers. Fourth, they must be able to withstand pressure, and 5th, they must be eloquent. So he notified 6 people to come for an interview. He also gave the interviewees a few extra cakes and a book as travel expenses. In the end, he selected the 3 people who met the most conditions, namely Yu Yaoniang, Xiao Shan, and a private tutor named Li Yuan. Li Ju asked Yu Yaoniang about what he did. He said that this was very controversial. Someone would definitely use the fact that Yu Yaoniang was a girl to attack him. Yu Yaoniang's reputation as a slut would certainly spread everywhere. This was not a big deal in Jiangnan, but it was very serious in the conservative Liudong Road. Yu Yaoniang smiled, her eyes were like crescents, and her mouth was wide open, revealing 8 uneven teeth. I don't have a skin to live. Li Ju decided on these 3 backbones, signed a contract with them immediately, paid their monthly salary, and arranged a place for them to live. Yu Yaoniang lived with Yu Yaoniang, Jia, and Xiaoya, while Xiaoshan and Li Yuan lived with Suzuki. Xiaoshan was just a student, and he felt inferior when he saw the 2 scholars. Although he was the eldest, he subconsciously performed the disciple etiquette. Li Yuan himself was also a scholar, and he was not much worse than Suzuki. However, Suzuki was a retainer of the prince after all, and he was knowledgeable and experienced. Naturally, he was much better than Li Yuan. After 2 days, Li Yuan was in awe of Suzuki. Suzuki asked Li Yuan, "Sir, you have your own romantic life, why don't you take the exam, but live as a clerk?" Li Yuan answered straightforwardly, "No one in the palace exam can solve my doubts." Suzuki asked again, "Can Feng Ranghao solve it?" Li Yuan said, "Yes." Suzuki didn't seem to believe it. Li Ju arranged their daily life here and immediately let them devote themselves to learning. The seeds brought by Li Ju are new varieties, greenhouses, drip irrigation, composting, and new salt drying methods are all new technologies. The farming experience of the 3 backbones is not useless, but it is not used too much. Seedling cultivation, hybridization, temperature control, fermentation, sterilization, evaporation, and dissolution are all real new knowledge. Li Ju originally wanted to teach only the surface, but unexpectedly, the 3 backbones had a strong desire for knowledge, so Li Ju made an exception, and worked overtime at night, to teach them scientific literacy at night. Botany, biology, climatology, physics. Solve the doubts of these 3 people from the most basic knowledge, and bring them into a brand new world. As Li Yuan was learning, he suddenly had an idea. A full and big seed is more likely to breed a good next generation. So, if we find 2 smart people to marry, will it be easier to give birth to smart children? Li Ju had to look at him more. If he took this idea a step further, it would be racism and eugenics, which is very dangerous. Unfortunately, it is not. The origin of genes is like this, but the expression is quite random and environmentally dependent. Although there are data showing that families with talented parents are more likely to give birth to promising children, it is more because such families will pay more attention to their children's knowledge and give them more food, especially meat. The protein in meat is very important for the development of children and promotes their acquired development. Mr. Li Yuan is very smart. I guess your family conditions should be quite good when you were young. Li Yuan smiled and didn't say no. The 3 backbones can come here, which is inseparable from their original courage and enterprising spirit to study. The new knowledge given to them by Li Ju, they quickly absorbed, digested and understood it like a sponge absorbing water. Li Ju laid a scientific foundation for them, corrected their inappropriate thoughts, and then divided the work among them according to their respective strengths. Chapter 352 Practical Operation. Among the 3 key personnel recruited, Yu Yaoniang is the best at bookkeeping and checking accounts. Li Yuan is eloquent and can learn everything quickly, but is the most impetuous, and Xiaoshan is the most honest person, who does what he says, and does it without any nonsense. Li Ju quickly gave the account book to Yu Yaoniang, gave the task of compiling teaching materials and formulas to Li Yuan, and gave the task of studying technology to solve difficult problems to Xiaoshan. Although Yu Yaoniang changed her job to accountant, she still needs to learn 80% of the technology, otherwise, she will be deceived after a long time. Li Yuan was originally a teacher, and teaching and educating people is his old profession, but he has to change his flowery way of speaking. He is different from ordinary corrupt scholars. He does not object to interacting with common people, nor does he look down on farmers who can't recognize a single word. He had a clear understanding of his own identity. If I hadn't eaten at hundreds of houses in my early years, I would have starved to death outside the gate. How could I have had the opportunity to take the exam for a scholar? But I'm not a good student, and I can't teach well. It's better to teach everyone to farm. If everyone grows well, I can hire a good tutor, and maybe I can teach more good seedlings. He was really sober, which was quite rare. As for Xiaoshan, he was silent like the second mute most of the time, and he really put a lot of effort into learning and thinking about what Li Ju taught. Maybe he really has a talent. Li Ju felt that his learning speed might be a little slower than Xiaolian. Xiaoshan usually thinks a lot when doing farm work, but no one helped him solve his doubts in the past. Li Ju just gave him a little help and he could figure it out. The three of them were very capable people. After being assigned different positions, they quickly got things going. Some of Li Ju's seedlings were already ready for transplanting. Li Ju used this first batch of transplantable seedlings as the first month's exam questions and gave them to them to do. Li Ju gave enough money, food, and people, but things started from finding an experimental field, including recruiting people and workers, building greenhouses, all by themselves. At the same time, Li Ju hurried to find a potter to burn drip irrigation pipes and water storage and pressurization devices. Drip irrigation technology should also be handed over to the technical station for promotion, but Li Ju needs it. The most suitable water-saving device that Li Ju could think of for Chengyang Prefecture was the drip irrigation system. Daeang might not be able to do very precise filtration, and water with more impurities could easily cause drip point blockage. But it doesn't matter, Daeang has a lot of manpower, and it's not troublesome to replace it if it's blocked. If people in the future can handle filtration, it will be no problem to upgrade it. The technical difficulty of the drip irrigation system is the lowest, and the processing difficulty is the highest. For the craftsman, Li Ju can't help at all except spending money. The firing of the demonstration template was handed over to Yaoniang. Since Li Ju finished drawing the drawings, Yaoniang and Yunyang are now wandering Chengyang Prefecture. No matter how poor and miserable the women in Chengyang Prefecture are, they usually don't go out. If they wanted to go out, they had to have something important to do, and they would go with a lot of people, and only when there were no people on the road in the morning or evening would they dare to go out. However, Yaoniang and Yunyang were openly showing their faces. Later, Yunyang went to the experimental field that they rented, and they were basically not seen anymore, but Yaoniang was always out and about. Most people couldn't stand Yaoniang's meddling in everything on behalf of Feng Ranghao. She meddled more than Suzy K, the aide of Feng Ranghao. However, no one dared to say no to Yaoniang. Especially those who were running businesses. They said that Yaoniang was not self-disciplined behind her back, but called her Miss Li respectfully to her face. Yaoniang, Huajia and Yaoniang lived together. They had heard some rumors from outside, or tried to warn Yaoniang indirectly, but Yaoniang didn't care much. I know, I have met many such people. To put it in the words of our master, I like to see them dislike me, but can't get rid of me, so they can only tolerate me and praise me. Besides, I'm just a little bit ahead of myself. If you two are lucky enough to go to Jiangnan in the future, you can meet my good sister, who is in charge of half of the Li family's property and looks majestic when she walks on the street. That's what a woman should be like. Huaji didn't go out much, so she envied them a little, but she didn't care. Yunyang nodded thoughtfully. Later, when she went to the experimental field again, she was even more lazy to pay attention to the rumors outside. Yaoniang and her sister were standing there. The three backbones of the technical station bought an experimental field in the east of the city, just like Li Ju's happy hometown in Kingshan. Half of it was flat and half on the slope. Then they hired people to dig a reservoir on the slope and use cement, stone, and ceramic pieces to paste 5 sides to prevent seepage, and regularly replenished river water as a water source. A greenhouse was built on the flatland, with wheat, millet, and peanuts in it. Several temporary sheds were built on the mountain for night watchmen to live in. Cucumbers were planted by the pool, and other places were temporarily planted with crops for the control group and breeding group. There was also an empty corner, which was prepared for the apple seedlings that had not yet grown. The apples were still small seedlings, and it was not time to transplant them yet. The apples that Li Ju took were seeds and cuttings. The cuttings died on the way, but Li Ju still had some seedlings in the warehouse. He would replace some dead cuttings with new seedlings that were still active in the warehouse. In this way, several seedlings survived, and the rest were seeds, still taking root and sprouting. Next to the shed was the office and living area of the technical station, which was a square courtyard with 2 entrances and was under construction. The shed leads all the way to the deepest part of the mountain, where a manure pit and a compost pit are dug. A little further away is a workshop for making soil fertilizer. A working ox and 2 mules sponsored by Li Ju are kept in a pen at the foot of the shed. This is the first phase prototype layout of the technical station. After discussing with Yu Yaoniang and Yu Yaoniang recruited 20 farmers to participate in the cultivation of the experimental field. These 20 farmers are not full-time or lifelong participants. They have their own fields to cultivate. They accepted the recruitment only because they have excess labor and want to earn more food. When the technical station was recruiting people, these farmers also heard about it. They didn't know how to read, and they didn't think it would work. It was a pity that they couldn't get the monthly salary of 1 stone of rice and 1 teal of silver. As soon as they arrived at the experimental field, they envied those who got the monthly salary. They didn't dare to say anything to Yu Yaoniang, a scholar, but they were not so polite to Yu Yaoniang and Yu. Li Ju didn't know, and he knew he couldn't intervene. Yu Yaoniang and her friends hired the people, and they will have to take care of future matters themselves. He can interfere for a while, but can he interfere forever? Not long after, Yu Yaoniang swiftly replaced several farmers who were not doing their job well, and were always nagging and complaining, and replenished the staff again. This time, there were 2 very strong peasant women among the replenishment. It is common for peasant women to do farm work, unlike Yu Yaoniang who does what men should do and will not attract rumors. Moreover, the 2 peasant women are very attentive to their work, and the temperature of the greenhouse they take care of is more reliable than others. Every time they are evaluated, they are top, and the wages they receive every 5 days are also the highest. Even the other people who were originally a little lazy have become more serious day by day. Li Ju occasionally went to their experimental fields to take a look. The fields were almost different every day, and everything was moving forward in an orderly manner with bumps and bruises. This is very good. As time went by, the difference between the experimental fields and other places gradually became obvious. The experimental fields were planted with seeds brought by Li Ju and local seeds. The local seeds included millet and wheat, which were similar seeds in the control group, as well as economic crops such as vegetables, fruits, etc. The treatment of seeds was divided into different conditions, such as greenhouse plus soil and fertilizer treatment, excluding wheat and millet, greenhouse, excluding wheat and millet, or soil and fertilizer treatment, and the same treatment of other local planting methods, excluding peanuts. After a period of time, people could see with their naked eyes that even without considering the variety, the wheat, millet, fruits, and vegetables planted in the experimental fields grew better than those in their ordinary fields. Chapter 353, Applying for an official position. Put the benefits in front of people, and it is impossible for them not to be tempted. Li Ju went out to brag about it, but the people he could attract were not as many as the actual result of a 30% increase in production. So more and more people came to the experimental field to see the novelty. When there are more people, they are no longer so unfamiliar. Some people dare to ask this and that, and some people want to learn it themselves. Li Ju originally planned to start training after the harvest in the second half of the year, and to prepare the land, to restore the soil fertility. During this period, he needs to take Yu and to select 2 or 3 people from each village as the station of the village technical station. These village level technicians will receive certain training. After they have a certain level of literacy, it is time to prepare the land. While preparing the land in the experimental field, the basic techniques are taught to the technicians, and they are asked to take them back to the village to promote. Now they are flocking here, which is a good thing. Li Ju has changed the procedure after watching for 2 days in the field, so he simply starts from this stage. Now is the time when wheat is growing vigorously. The wheat that is deeply plowed and fertilized according to Li Ju's method has a completely different growth from the wheat that is planted by the local traditional method. Li Yuan was in the field, talking to the farmers who came to ask for advice, and he was discussing why the early stage of land preparation had to be done in such a way. Yaoniang taught the women how to pollinate, pinch the tips, set up vines, and control the temperature. Xiaoshan was the one who demonstrated the operation to them. The first time is new, the second time is familiar. When the knowledge point came to how to prevent rust, the three backbones seemed to be experienced, and a group of useful people gradually emerged from the people who came to listen. When the crowd gathered, someone would naturally speak and take the leading role, and there would be a difference between speaking and listening. The naturally formed relationship was more stable and more useful, and of course more traditional, and it was easier to hide some lower level class relations. After the dormitory courtyard of the experimental field was completed, Li Ju also lived in the experimental field for a few days. He selected a few people who could not hide things and could not hold back their words from those who came to listen to the class, and asked them one by one whether they were willing to be technicians in their village, come to the experimental field for training regularly, and then pass the training content back to the village. As technicians, they may not have time to take care of their own land, but they can get some rice from the court, not much, but slightly higher than the harvest from farming. The few people selected by Li Ju all agreed, which was quite unexpected for Li Ju. Li Ju thought that they would at least hesitate. After all, they were only given a little more, but they had to teach the whole village the technology of farming. If they kept this technology for themselves, they could produce 30% more grain than other families, plus intercropping of cash crops. They might be able to earn half more rice a year. But these people agreed immediately and asked enthusiastically whether they had to learn to read as technicians. There are many things to teach here, and they are afraid that they can't remember them well, so they still have to write them down. They have such a strong subjective will, and Li Ju is very happy. When doing things, you are afraid of being pushed and blocked, and not being happy. As long as you are a little bit proactive, it will be done. There must be a second for everything. Li Ju found a few technicians here, and soon more people took the initiative to sign up. Anyway, Li Ju accepted everyone who came, and pushed the rest of the things to Yaoniang and Li Yuan. Everything went smoothly in the experimental field, and the drip irrigation system was making good progress. Li Ju had already figured out the method of drying salt, and he would go to the beach to have a look in the near future. Li Ju had to figure out how to apply for the 9th rank Doctor of Agriculture for Yaoniang. The title of 9th rank Doctor of Agriculture was approved by His Majesty the Emperor. Li Ju set up an agricultural technology station in Shengyang Prefecture, and he was in charge of everything. As long as he was in office, the backbone technicians under him could reach the highest honorary title of 9th rank Doctor, and there would be a group of 9th rank titles below him. If it could be officially promoted nationwide in the future, there would be other corresponding ranks. This arrangement was tacitly accepted by even those who opposed it the most in the capital. Their main argument now was whether the personnel of this agricultural technology station should also be selected from the imperial examination candidates. However, these titles would not be given to women according to common law, and Daeong did not have any real female officials. The female officials in the palace were internal women, who were responsible for taking care of the daily life of the royal family, and could not interfere in local affairs and government affairs. Even though some female officials were able to influence government affairs, because of their intelligence and the convenience of living with male members of the royal family, they achieved their goals through men who were qualified to participate in politics, and the female officials themselves could not directly interfere in politics. It was the first time that Li Ju wanted to ask Yaoniang for the rank of 9th rank Doctor of Agriculture. This matter was more dangerous than the agricultural technology station itself, and more like a powder keg. Li Ju's miscellaneous knowledge shook the people's hearts in Confucianism. The technology station system shook the imperial examination system, and allowing women to obtain official titles shook the 3 bonds and 5 constant virtues. Even Li Ju was a little hesitant. It was actually feasible not to ask Yaoniang to resign, or simply to report a certain Ruran who was an external lady. However, this was against his original intention. If you give in once, you will definitely give him the second and third time. In this era, the upper class had the power of life and death. Li Ju tried his best to maintain the living habits of modern society and not to use his privileges. The contracts he signed with people were actually labor contracts. Even verbally, he rarely used other people's lives, worth and his own power as threats. Half of the reason was that he was afraid that he would be corrupted by the unscrupulous ancient power and slowly become the kind of person he hated the most. When Li Ju was hesitating, Master Rinsen came to find him. Master Rinsen was not idle in Chengyang Prefecture. He rented a house as a temporary station and then ran around like Li Ju. In terms of understanding the countryside of Chengyang Prefecture, he knew much more than Li Ju. In order to finish his work and go home early, Li Ju went to Chengyang Prefecture to pile up the technology tree. Suzuki ran for him in those places in the countryside. Ensign ran around the countryside in a down-to-earth manner and then returned to the city to find Li Ju. Li Ju was worrying about his job title when he was informed by Suzuki that a guest had arrived, so he rode back to the office from the experimental field. Ensign was looking around with interest in the room where Li Ju entertained guests, and he sat there chatting with Yu Yaoniang when he had nothing to do. Yu Yaoniang recognized him and did not dare to disobey him, but Yu Yaoniang did not dare to sell any information about Li Ju. Such an honest man was sweating profusely after being questioned by Ensign. Fortunately, Li Ju came back and replaced Yu Yaoniang. Yu Yaoniang breathed a long sigh of relief before leaving. Li Ju heard it and felt a little strange, but because Master Ensign had already greeted him with a smile, Li Ju did not have time to think about it. Ensign was very single, and he said to Li Ju, "I haven't seen you for months, and I'm very curious about your job these days, so I asked a few more questions. Please don't blame me. It doesn't matter. I told you the beginning. You are right to be curious. Are you free to come and sit with me today?" Chapter 354 Choice. Of course, Ensign came to find Li Ju after he had settled the basic situation in the local area and was going to fulfill his own mission. "It's not that I'm free or anything, I'm interested in this agricultural technology station that my brother set up. Yes, a technology station, and I want to learn from my brother, and then I'll set up one in my house in the future. What do you think, brother?" Ensign is young, and calling him brother all the time doesn't make people feel bored, but rather makes people feel more like a relative or acquaintance. Li Ju was quite surprised. "Technical station? I don't know what the future will be like. How can you have the confidence to go home and build one?" Ensign smiled and said, "No matter whether it works at the level of the court, it is an institution that spreads a person's wisdom and experience to a place, and the people are always happy. Otherwise, I'm also happy to have land at home." Li Ju thought that he could teach as many as he could and agreed readily. "Okay, brother, find someone and go to Mr. Su twice, and you will know." Ensign shook his head. "How can the person in charge not know the details of the people below? If it is convenient for my brother, let me learn how to do things from my brother, and let me take a look at everything, no matter how big or small. Wouldn't it be smoother?" The same principle applies to all things in the world. The head of the family must not be ignorant of the world. Otherwise, if the people below see that the head of the family can be bullied, they will inevitably form a party to bully the superiors and conceal the truth. Other families will inevitably have evil intentions when they see that this family can be bullied. Li Ju felt that what he said made sense. Moreover, it is not a bad thing for a noble young master like him to see more of the sufferings of the lower classes. In the future, if he has more kindness towards his tenants, servants and hired workers, there will be more people in the world who can make a living. That's fine. I just have a difficult matter here, and I want to find someone to think about it together. Since you want to be involved in every detail, this is a coincidence. Let's start from here. Li Jiu showed Ensign the resumes of Yaoniang and the other two and the recruitment notice at that time. "Before I received this matter, I got permission from the court to apply for formal official status for the clerks of the technical station when I was doing a pilot project of the technical station in Chengyang Prefecture. Although it is only the 9th rank and the 9th rank, it can allow these people to complete the leap from common people to officials." Ensign nodded. "It's very appropriate. Without an official status, you can't control people, let alone negotiate with the locals for land, population, money, grain, and tools. Lee Jiu circled Yaoniang's resume with his hand. This is what I'm troubled about. Ensign read it carefully several times and suddenly realized, she is a woman. Brother, don't you want women to be officials? If I don't want to, I don't have to hesitate so much. It's precisely because I want to, that I can't make up my mind. I don't want to be an enemy of the people in the world. After all, giving an official position to a commoner, who has not passed the imperial examination is already jumping around in the forbidden zone of the people in the world, especially the court officials. I don't want to push this girl, to be the first to stand out. Ensign has seen the sufferings of the world, but has not seen the struggles between the court and the wealthy families, so he doesn't care. In my humble opinion, why don't we ask the girl herself? If she is willing, we should report it to her. Whether the emperor agrees or not, and whether the court approves or not, that's their business. If she doesn't want to, then so be it. Li Ju was surprised again, as if he had been surprised by Master Ensan's extraordinary words and deeds, since he knew him, and said, it should be so, but I'm afraid that she doesn't know the seriousness of the matter, and chooses yes rashly, and I'm also afraid that she doesn't know the meaning of this official position and throws it away casually. Ensign said, then explain it to the girl. These days I have also read some of my brother's previous articles. My brother himself said that it is better to suffer clearly than to have vague happiness. This time, Li Ju was really too surprised. Ensan, an ancient man, was just as radical as Li Ju. However, everything Ensan said made sense. So Li Ju took advantage of the day's rest to invite Yaoniang, Yuan, Xiaoshan and others. Xiaoshan made the decision the fastest. He was just a student, his family conditions were average, and his son was not very promising. If he could turn over and enter the clerk class, his family's life would be much better. Although his son was not promising, his grandson could study in the county school in the future. At the very least, he could use his salary to hire a teacher for one-on-one lessons. At the very least, he had a good identity, and his family had a higher voice in the village. Yuan was more entangled than Yaoniang. Yuan was a scholar, and he was not too old. He could continue to take the exam for a few more years. A scholar was no worse than a 9th rank clerk as a private tutor. From the perspective of learning, a private tutor was even better than a clerk. If he could pass the exam and become a teacher in the county school, it would be even better. If he accepted this doctor of agronomy position, there would be almost no chance for him to pass the imperial examinations in the future. Although Yuan felt that the things about the imperial examinations could not solve his doubts, the improvement of his personal status was another matter. He replied that he wanted to think about it for 2 days, and Li Ju also believed that such an important event in life did require careful consideration, so he let him go back to think about it first. Yaoniang herself did not take a long time to think about it, but Li Ju did not let her speak in front of the other two. Instead, he sent Xiaoshan and Yuan away, and then with Yaoniang's consent, he called Yaoniang and Ensign. In front of Yaoniang, Li Ju talked to Yaoniang in detail about the official position. He hoped that Yaoniang would have the courage to accept everything she deserved. On the premise of knowing all the consequences, he also hoped that Yaoniang would not become the target of public criticism. After all, her ability was fully worthy of such an official position. This is the situation. There are 3 options before you. The first is to accept the application for the title of Doctor of Agronomy. If you are successful, you will be the first female official in the history of Daeang to work outside the country. You may go down in history, or you may be cursed by the world. If you fail, then you will not succeed. The second option is to accept the title of 9th rank Confucian scholar, which is your honor and your identity. The third option is that you choose to be a behind the scenes person and not show your face in the front. Yaoniang moved uneasily, wanting to speak, but held it back. Yaoniang opened her mouth, but changed her mind before she responded subconsciously. I think, can I go back and discuss it with my family? To be honest, sir, they have said, since I was a child, that I'm like a boy, with big eyes and a big heart. What men can do, I can do too. But I have to ask my family's opinion, and let everyone know first. so as to avoid surprises when the time comes. Upon hearing this, Ensnare, who had been staring at the manuscript paper, quietly raised his head and glanced at her. He saw that she was a very smart girl with an oval face, about 20 years old, with delicate features. She was not very beautiful, but had a special freshness and energy. When Yaoniang talked about wanting to accept this official position, there was light in her eyes. Yaoniang also hoped that Yaoniang could choose the first option. After listening to Yaoniang's plan, she volunteered to go back to the village with Yaoniang to help out. Li Ju was afraid that Yaoniang would appear weak if she went home alone to discuss such a big thing. If her family members strongly opposed it, she would not be able to find a helper for a while. Yaoniang's suggestion was exactly what he wanted, so he called Yu Yaoniang and asked him to escort Yaoniang and Yaoniang back home to discuss the matter. Chapter 355 Dilemma. Ensnare said, "Why don't I ask my guards to take it? My brother and I are going together. The guards are useless here. It's better to go out and do some errands." Li Ju nodded in agreement and asked Ensane's guards to accompany him. Yaoniang got 2 days off to go home and discuss this matter with her family, but Li Ju was not idle here. After the first generation model of drip irrigation was fired, Li Ju called Xiaoshan and recruited 2 idle people from the local area to test the effect together. Li Ju simplified. Drip irrigation equipment has 3 parts: the source of water pumping, water delivery pipes and drippers. All the samples this time are pottery products. If they are to be installed on a large scale in the future, the water pipes may need to be replaced with other materials. In the south, there is no need to think about changing the water pipes to bamboo pipes. In Chengyang Prefecture, it is not necessarily the case. Chengyang Prefecture does not produce bamboo. If bamboo is transported from the south, I'm afraid that the freight will be more expensive than pottery. Li Ju did not think about these things for the time being. If drip irrigation can be made, pottery can be fired. It is expensive. Solving the water problem for crops is more important than anything else. The drippers were made of wood for the time being, because Li Ju was not sure about the aperture and length, so he asked a carpenter to plane several drippers of different data for experimentation, and finally selected one, and fired it into a finished product. Ensnare personally helped Li Ju assemble a set, put the water absorbing end in a bucket of water, sucked a mouthful from one end of the pipe, sucked out the water, and then connected the water pipe. Soon, water stains gradually appeared on the edges of various drippers. Ensnare watched the dripper drip water little by little. Li Ju seemed to think that this was enough. Ensnare couldn't help but wonder, and asked, "Brother, can this solve the problem of drought in Chengyang Prefecture? Water shortage? It's nothing more than increasing revenue and reducing expenditure. Increasing revenue includes water conservancy, digging wells, and desalination of seawater. If you talk about it in the long run, you can't finish it in a lifetime. What we are doing here is saving expenditure. Why can we save expenditure? By changing to watering drop by drop. Don't crops still need so much water? Because when watering the land normally, most of the water is evaporated or absorbed by the soil and evaporated. Evaporation, I have taught you. Do you understand? In a dry place like Chengyang Prefecture, it is still hot in summer, and evaporation is very strong. Using drip irrigation can save more than 50% of water. This is the meaning of drip irrigation." Li Ju couldn't grasp what kind of crops these water outputs were suitable for, so he could only remember the approximate amount, then turned off the device, asked Xiaoshan to send it to the experimental field, and put it away, and told them to watch and compare it themselves. Success is to be able to output water smoothly. Li Ju asked Xiaoshan to write it down, because there are too many impurities in the water. The drip holes will be easily blocked and need to be replaced frequently. It is best to arrange someone to check them once a day. The same goes for water pipes. Xiaoshan wrote it down honestly. Ensnare subconsciously calculated the manpower needed to check the drip holes and replace the drip heads every day. He frowned and asked, "In this case, it will take a whole person to check this thing. Although it saves water, it uses more people. Is it really cost effective?" This is called the shortboard effect. The grain output of Chengyang Prefecture in the previous villages cannot be increased. The biggest constraint is water. There is only enough water to irrigate 1 acre of land. Even if there are enough people, seeds, and land to plant 2 acres of land, in the end only 1 acre of land can be planted. Make up the most scarce resources first, and then make up for the others. Corresponding to Chengyang Prefecture, it means to make up for the water first, then the defects of varieties, and then the defects of manpower. To be honest, Chengyang Prefecture is not suitable for agriculture, especially for growing climate-sensitive crops such as grain, but Li Ju shook his head. Lu Dongdao said that, if he wanted to do business, he would do it in his next life. But the next door Luxi road might be even more difficult. Tut, 2 people in the same boat. Ensign thought about it, but he had no idea, so he just shook his head. Xiaoshan moved the things out, and put them away. Hua Jie came out from next door, and handed him an indigo bundle. The master asked Miss Li to teach me to make it. It's your official robe. You can try it, and see if it fits. Xiaoshan was the first to receive Li Ju's application that day. While Li Ju reported it to his superiors, he took out the cloth that should be made from the warehouse to make clothes for him. The patches for the official uniforms had to wait for the court to issue them before they could be made, but the daily clothes and casual clothes could already be prepared. So Li Ju asked Yaoniang to teach Hua Jie to make a set of daily clothes for Xiaoshan. Xiaoshan was distracted, took the bundle, and held it in his hand. His face flushed. I'm wearing the official robe now? Li Ju folded his hands at the door and smiled. This is not an official robe yet. When the patch comes tomorrow, I will give you 2 pieces of good satin. You can take it back, and let your wife make it according to the pattern. Then it will be a formal official robe. As he spoke, Li Ju remembered the ancient saying that, if you don't return home, when you are rich and noble, it's like walking in brocade clothes at night. He added, okay, Yaoniang should be back in the next 2 days. There is not much work in the fields. After dinner, you can wear your new clothes in the afternoon, to visit the elderly and children at home, which is considered to be a glory for the family. Xiaoshan happily agreed, went back to the inner room, wiped his face randomly, and put on this official robe made of satin. At first glance, the indigo satin and the blue dyed coarse cloth look the same, but the spirit of the person is different. Xiaoshan's hair is still messy, but he looks very energetic. Li Ju glanced at him, asked Sister Hua to bring him a mirror, and asked him to fix his hair, neck, face and collar, and then take a big donkey, and take the monthly salary home. Li Ju knew that he had a mother, a wife and children at home, so he thought about it, and gave him a handful of cakes produced in the warehouse. Xiaoshan and Yaoniang were from the same village. When he went home, and crossed the bridge, Yaoniang's home was at the end of the bridge. Yaoniang was very conflicted at home these 2 days. It turned out that her family did not approve of her taking the 9th rank official position, and even wanted her to give the official position to her brother. Her parents said, you will eventually get married, and only your brother from your natal family can support you. You probably won't be able to get this official position, and even if they do, when you get married, can you still run around outside? You'll be left with nothing, so it's better to let your brother do it. Yaoniang said, my brother can't read, let alone count. He has to deal with books all day long. I have to count 17 or 18 accounts a day, and I teach composting, fertilizer refining, reaction equations, genes, heredity, and chromosomes. My brother can't even add, subtract, multiply, and divide within 100. How can he do this? Her mother disagreed. If he can't do it, can't you help him? Your brother will be the official, and you can just do his job. Who cares who works under him? The landlord doesn't care whether his land is cultivated by me or your father. Her father knocked on the bed and said, Juna, you have been smart since you were young. You have been to the village school several times, but you can memorize the books better than a mountain. You should do the math yourself. It is obvious that you can't get the official position, but maybe it will be good for your brother. The official you mentioned is a good person, so he will be able to turn around. You should try your best to please him and beg for mercy. Juna remained silent. Of course she didn't want to. She even had the idea that she would rather not be an official than let her brother impersonate her. Chapter 356. The second technical point. During the 2 days that Yaoniang was at home, Yaoniang lived with her. Her house was not soundproof, and the family was discussing in one room, but Yaoniang could hear everything clearly in the next room. Yaoniang endured it 3 or 5 times before she could stop herself from rushing over to make trouble, and only secretly hoped that Yaoniang would not make the wrong decision. Yaoniang was entangled here for 2 days, and then she met Xiaoshan riding a donkey home. Xiaoshan was dressed in bright clothes, a satin robe, and soap leather boots, with a big red flower tied on his donkey. He was surrounded by villagers on the other side of the bridge, and surrounded by villagers from this village, and came down from the bridge in a lively manner. Xiaoshan, I'm getting married. Can I borrow your dress to go with me? Yes, come to my house to get it. Just don't damage it. The government issued dress won't be replaced. Xiaoshan, are you really an official? I still need a letter of appointment. I don't know when it will come. The senior official asked me to wear it to show the villagers. Can Yaoniang be an official? Yes, the master wants to give Yaoniang an official position. It depends on Yaoniang's own wishes. What's so good about this? Who doesn't want to be an official? She can also ride a big animal back, neighing, so proud. Yaoniang and Yaoniang each held a bowl and stood at the back door to watch all this. Thanks to Yaoniang and the guards of Princeton, Yaoniang's food has been pretty good recently. Yaoniang's mother is willing to kill chickens and eggs. The guests all eat well, and Yaoniang is also okay. These 2 days, Yaoniang is still being flattered by them to get her official position, so their rice bowls are full of chicken pieces. To be honest, this chicken is far inferior to Li Yuan's. Li Yuan later changed to white feathered chickens, which have more meat and are delicious. This chicken is dry, old, and fishy. Yaoniang wanted to persuade Yaoniang, but then she thought that she had no parents or relatives, and she didn't know where her poor sister was. If she and her sister had such a dilemma, she couldn't think of what to do. Finally, she thought that she couldn't let Li Ju down, so it was okay if Li Ju was happy. Yaoniang looked at Xiaoshan riding a horse and lost her appetite. The shadow gradually disappeared on the village road, and the onlookers disappeared with it. Miss, you don't know. In the past, Xiaoshan's family was always laughed at for being a toad wanting to eat swan flesh. What a foolish dream. Why should people go to school and study for 8 generations of tenant farmers? They failed the examination and finally went back home to farm. Yaoniang whispered, now he has an official position. Look, he is surrounded by people. Yaoniang said, sister, you are in a dilemma. Why don't you choose the second way? The 9th rank imperial concubine is also a rank. What's wrong with being a woman of an official position? In ancient times, there were female envoys who were sent to foreign countries, and there were female generals in the previous dynasty. Yaoniang seemed not to hear and sneered. At that time, I did everything at home. Occasionally, when I was free, I would chop firewood for the village school to pay for my brother's tuition. I only went there for a few days a month, and I memorized all the books I heard in those days. They praised me for being smart and knowing how to read, but at the same time they said, what's the use of being smart? What can a girl do? Yaoniang's sneer disappeared and turned into a real smile. I want to let them know that a little girl will hold their lifeblood in the future. I'm not born with a smart head for nothing. I can do it. Girl, I have thought it through. I want an official position. Yaoniang breathed a long sigh of relief. Okay, then go and ask for it. When I return to Kingshan City tomorrow, I will also get a position as the director of the technical station. We will be in the south and the north, echoing each other from afar. Yaoniang grinned. Okay, it's settled. Then let's go. According to the master, it is not so easy to apply for an official position for me. The sooner we plan, the better. Yaoniang, who had thought it through, did not say a word. That afternoon, she took Yaoniang back to Chengyang Prefecture and found Li Ju clearly, saying that she wanted an official position. Li Ju did not say anything else, but wrote a letter to her to ask for an official position, and then asked her to withdraw a set of indigo silk for her daily clothes. Ensign was also very happy. He said that Li Ju's letter alone was not enough. He also wrote a letter, strongly recommending and supporting Yaoniang's title of 9th rank Doctor of Agriculture, and listed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 benefits. Ensign's letter and Li Ju's letter were sealed and sent to the capital together. The subsequent turmoil was not known until more than a month later. Liu and later refused to take the 9th rank title, but still worked diligently in the technical station. Li Ju knew that he still wanted to continue to take the exam, so he didn't force anything. He let the three of them continue to work in the fields and let them start the second stage of sorting out. The first stage is to establish a technical station, train backbones, formulate various rules and regulations, and establish a budget settlement system for income and expenditure. It has been completed. The second stage is to set up a subordinate county/town technical station for the prefectural technical station, and then there are technical stations that go deep into each village. However, in the current situation, as long as the villages are in the same area, they can share the technical training of a technical station, and there is no need to be too rigid about administrative affiliation. Li Ju has already selected some suitable people as the leaders of the second phase. There are still some blank areas, and they need to recruit them by themselves. And the three of them are the backbone of the state/prefecture technical station, and obviously the number is too small. They also need assistants, students, newcomers, etc. These have been put on the agenda, that is, they need to recruit a group of suitable talents by themselves, and the specific standards and uses are also proposed by themselves. Li Ju only checks to prevent them from recruiting completely irrelevant people to satisfy their selfish desires. Li Ju let all these things go to Yu Yaoniang, Liu and the other three, and he took Ensign to the easternmost county of Chengyang Prefecture, the fishing village of Boming County. Li Ju came here to investigate the salt beach and terrain. The salt beach is to prepare for the method of drying salt, and the terrain is to see if there is room for road construction. Even if business cannot be carried out, it is a good thing to build a road and strengthen the exchanges between the prefecture and the county. Boming County is much poorer than Chengyang Prefecture, the atmosphere is more closed, and the people here are more vicious. Kang Junshao of Chengyang Prefecture had a good character, and he was placed under the eyes of Princess Chengyang, so he was always kind to his subordinates, comforted the people, and kept them safe, and all he wanted in his life was to be blameless. But this Boming County was far worse. Boming County had a seaport, and once made a living by doing some maritime trade, or supplying the two major seaports designated by the North. It was reasonable to say that life should be okay. In fact, Boming County was indeed very developed at some time. Looking back to the previous dynasty, Boming County had developed relatively prosperous by relying on the ocean and salt merchants at the end of the previous dynasty, and it gradually declined to this point after the war began. Moreover, the local people were tough, and the local tyrants who controlled the local clan power were quite powerful. Since the founding of Dayang, several consecutive county officials in Boming County either colluded with the crowd or kept themselves out of trouble. The final result was that those nearby merchants and traders would rather take a detour or simply wait for Dingbo Port to be open to navigation than go out to sea from Boming County. Chapter 357, discussing this local tyrant. The first thing Li Ju did when he arrived in Boming County was to arm wrestle with the fierce local snake. After Li Ju found a place to settle down, he immediately went to the local salt field. The method of boiling salt in the salt field of Boming County is the same as that in other places. Most of the water is evaporated by the sun, and then the crystals are washed over and over again by the pouring and frying method. This method of boiling salt has entered the stage of using solar energy, but it still consumes a lot of firewood, and the salt taken out contains too many impurities and is bitter. In this era, sea salt is not as precious as well salt. The reason lies in the impurities in sea salt. Li Ju walked along the village where salt was made for a while, recording their salt making methods and costs, salt prices, etc. A little bit. It is still poor, if you look closely, but poor enough to survive. The yard rented by Li Ju and others belongs to the public idol house of the village, which is mainly taken care of by the old head of the village, that is, the father of the current head of the village. The rent is cheap, only 15 yuan a day, but no meals are included. Because of the lack of business and the barren land, the villages that can make salt are only richer than other places. After 5 or 6 days, Li Ju just returned to the village and met the local salt tyrant. I heard that you are very interested in drying salt. Have you asked the 6th master before? You dare to ask for it? The door of the small bungalow rented by Li Ju was kicked open, and several people holding hammers and kitchen knives staggered in. The leader kicked over the table and chairs in front of him, and the one who spoke was his younger brother. Yu Yaoniang and the guards of young Master Ensign all quietly clenched their knives. Suzuki had never seen such a scene before, and his calves were shaking with fear. However, he still remembered his duties, and shouted in a trembling voice, "Who are you? How dare you trespass into a private house?" The accomplice hit his chest with a hammer and pushed him inside, saying disdainfully, "Little white face, I'm your grandfather." Li Ju stopped Suzuki and unceremoniously pushed the younger brother who stood up, making him stagger. "Who are you? You want to be my father, but are you worthy?" As soon as he finished speaking, a man next to him kicked him on the head, but Li Ju grabbed his calf and almost broke the man's fibula with a little force. He cried for his parents on the spot in pain. Seeing that the situation was not good, the leader called on his brothers to rush forward together. Yu Yaoniang and the mute drew their sabers, and the guards of Master Ensign also rushed out from the inner room. At one time, the small room was crowded with 17 or 18 men. Li Ju's side was full of tall and strong men, and the weapons in their hands were all good steel knives. Although they did not take out the standard sabers in order to conceal their identities, these steel knives were actually uniformly prepared by the subordinate institutions of the Ministry of War, and they were many times better than the swords of the people. Looking at the other side, there were more people, but except for a few who could compete with Yu Yaoniang, the others were set off like weak chickens, not to mention weapons. The hammers they held had iron on the top, and the kitchen knives were all knives with curled and broken blades. They encountered a tough stubble. The local snakes swallowed their saliva and had the urge to run away. The young man captured by Li Ju cried out, "Please spare my life, sir. Please spare my life. I won't dare to do it again." The leader said in a timid tone, You, let go. You are outsiders. No matter who you are, I will make sure no one here will listen to you. Then you can try it." Li Ju let go of his hand, and the young man fell to the ground. He was picked up by several companions, and the group of people ran away in a panic. Yu Yaoniang and Suzuki took the initiative to ask, "Master, why don't we go and say hello to the county magistrate?" "There is no hurry. Let me figure out the matter of the salt field first, and then we will go together. These shrimp soldiers and crab generals are not worth the enemy. There is nothing to worry about." Li Ju thought about their performance when they came in. They looked vicious, but in fact, they didn't shout for fighting and killing. As soon as they came, he caught the little brother who had started the fight. The people around him wanted to save him, but they didn't use knives or hammers. Instead, they wanted to fight hand to hand. This shows that they rarely used weapons, and they mainly used fists and feet. When they retreated, they took away the people he pinched, which shows that they are also loyal. Moreover, Yu Yaoniang was standing next to them just now, but they didn't even look at her. Some people looked at her secretly, but no one said anything rude to Yu Yaoniang. Li Ju is not exaggerating. Yu Yaoniang is now a graceful young lady, with a fair face, black hair, tall and well-proportioned figure, the kind of wife that people in this dynasty like most. And this group of poor and hot-blooded young men didn't offend Yu Yaoniang, which is enough to show that these young men actually have some bottom line. I just don't know if they have committed any heinous crimes in their daily lives. Thinking of this, Li Ju asked everyone to buy rice, noodles, vegetables, and meat from the villagers, and personally cooked dinner for everyone. Then he invited the owner of this house to come and ask him about the situation of the group of people just now. As expected by Li Ju, the group of local snakes were village tyrants and salt tyrants. They usually made a living by collecting protection fees, but they really had to work after collecting protection fees. They were young and strong men from nearby villages. They had nothing to do on weekdays and got entangled with each other. Gradually, they became a force and formed such an organization. They had to go into the mountains to hunt in autumn and winter, to drive away wild wolves, wild boars and tigers that threatened the village when there were thieves and robbers entering the village to commit crimes. They also had to protect the villagers. Sometimes there were profiteers and landlords who oppressed the good people in the local area, and they had to come forward to deal with these people. Of course, there would be no shortage of free food and drink, and stealing chickens and dogs was common, but they really did not do these things, such as molesting decent women, robbing houses, and bullying the elderly, weak women and children. Li Ju and Ensign both heard of such village bullies for the first time, and they were speechless for a while. Ensign picked a peanut in his mouth and asked curiously, "So, are they good people?" The old household owner said, "They are not good or bad. Anyway, it's either they take it or someone else takes it. Let them take it. After all, they are children of our village who have grown up in our eyes. Who knows if they will become sons-in-law in the future. They are still on the side of their own village. If they hadn't stopped us, the salt field would not have fallen into our hands now. It would have been occupied by others long ago. Fortunately, it's just a few acres of bitter salt fields." This is a serious statement. If it were a well or lake that produced good salt, it would probably be in the eyes of others that even village bullies could not protect it. Li Ju decided not to bother with them. Anyway, he would not make a living here. After a few days, he would have nothing to do with them. In the future, if the local villagers came up with the method of drying salt, there must be such a local organization to protect the interests of the villagers. Ensign looked at Li Ju, then at the old household head, and asked, "Aren't these things the responsibility of the government? Why don't your government protect you, and instead let these village tyrants come?" The old household head and Li Ju looked at Ensign together. This kid must be from a very wealthy family. Only he could ask such an unrealistic question. Young Master Ensign looked puzzled. The old household head explained, considering the generosity of the sponsor, "Hey, this young man is asking, besides the Li family in Jiangnan, where else in the world can the government take care of such a small corner? Even if it is their Li family, the people who protect the villages and towns are just temporary workers. The government wants to take care of us, but they pay for it themselves and hire someone to take care of us. Even if they are not greedy, there is not so much money in the treasury. Besides, the old county magistrate will only work for 3 to 5 years and then leave. He has no relatives or brothers. What village can he take care of? Okay, even if the old county magistrate brings the yamen runners to station in our village today, how many days will he stay there? When he is stationed here, will he take care of the affairs of other villages? You calculate, how will he take care of it?" Ensign was stunned. From Guanzhang to here, many things he had seen and heard along the way seemed to have answers. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 358, Village Bully Becomes Academic Bully. After listening to the old householder and Ensign's chatter, Li Ju was not interested in anything else, but was curious about where the old householder heard about the Li family in Jiangnan, and even knew about the organization of temporary workers. The old householder said bluntly, "How else can I know? It's a caravan. In the past, the caravans from the neighboring village went out to the sea from us, and at the very least they would buy salt from us. Now they all go to Jiangnan." Li Ju asked, "Don't you want to get some temporary workers yourself? For example, the group of guys today, if we put them in, we will give them money and food, and they will have a clear conscience. There are also rules and regulations to restrain them, so that they will not be fattened up and gradually go astray and become evil people." The householder said, "We originally thought about this, but we calculated and felt that it was not worth it. Think about it, how much money can our village earn in a year? Since the merchants stopped leaving here, the village has not saved anything." Li Ju sighed, "What if I have a way to run a salt field? In my opinion, your current method of boiling salt is too wasteful. If there is a simple method that saves firewood and can produce better salt, you can naturally recover in the future. However, a salt field is easy to run, but difficult to keep. Without dozens or hundreds of strong laborers, even if you have a salt field, it may not belong to you. Moreover, I often have to adjust various technologies here, boil salt, raise fish and kelp. In the future, it may be possible to transform the land, to improve soil fertility and solve the problem of salinization. but there must be a guarantee that everything here can continue to be carried out in an orderly manner after I'm gone. The old household owner did not quite believe what Li Ju said. If you can really do these things, the village will naturally have money. With money, we can hire people to patrol and guard, and there is no need to force any temporary workers. Things are not that simple. What if people who have learned new technologies and skills are unwilling to teach them to the village? What if they collude with outsiders to occupy the salt field? What if there are bullies who covet the salary and status in the technical points and falsely report to replace them? These are all problems. If it were in the city, I would not be afraid. County Magistrate Kang is a very good person and there must be a sense of propriety here. But in this village, I'm unsure. That's why I asked, if your village has more money, can you use such thoughts? This is also the reason why His Majesty the Emperor is unsure. If there were no such problems, why would he be so cautious to let Li Ju first set up an experimental site? Just convince the opponents, or even bypass them, and force them to execute. It is precisely because there are too many things that can be manipulated by humans that His Majesty the Emperor ordered Li Ju to come to Chengyang Prefecture first. Li Ju really couldn't think of any solution for the time being, so he could only take it one step at a time and teach the salt drying method first. Combining the actual situation of the village, Li Ju also drew a map. The most labor-saving and efficient way of extracting salt and discarding brine is to use salt ponds with layered sedimentation and highly saturated mother liquor crystallization. The main knowledge involved is tidal laws, saturation, layered sedimentation, etc. The most difficult and most precise control is actually the concentration of the mother liquor, brine. This concentration, combined with the temperature at the time, directly determines the content of other impurities in the final sea salt. Salt with too many impurities is certainly not good salt. However, even if the final output is still better salt with a considerable amount of impurities, it is still profitable. The rough pouring and frying method currently used in this village consumes firewood and manpower, which is not as easy and cost effective as Li Ju directly digging salt fields to dry. After revising the plan, Li Ju followed the operation of Chengyang Prefecture and also came to Boming County. First, reveal your identity and take down the county magistrate, then issue a notice to recruit people. They still need to be able to read and know how to dry salt. If they are finally selected to go to the technical station in the city, they will apply for the title of 9th rank doctor. If they are not qualified to go to the city, they can only stay in this village and this county, which means they are from the 9th rank, or even have no official title, only salary. Even so, Boming County is still boiling. Those who are well informed among them have long heard about what happened in the city, and even the news that Xiaoshan has received the official robe and is only waiting for a letter of appointment to complete his personal ascension has spread far and wide. On the surface, the people of Boming County said, the people of Fuchan really have no long-term plan. Is it worth it for them to give up their future for a low-ranking official of the 9th rank? It's not known how long this thing can last. In my opinion, it's far better to continue studying. What if you pass the exam and become a Juran? In fact, they were thinking, I don't know where such a good thing will fall next time. I'm afraid it will fall in Q's, where the water is sweet and good for farming. Alas, when will it be our turn to eat a mouthful of money in this poor place? Then the news spread, and unexpectedly, this good thing really fell in Boming County. Suddenly, I saw that the people who were still gathering yesterday to make sarcastic remarks about the technical station of Chengyang Prefecture rushed to line up to sign up today, fearing that they would be late and the station would be full. Among the people who signed up, Li Ju saw the village bully who brought people to smash the door that day. His original name was Yu Yaoniang. Seeing that he wrote his name quite neatly, it was speculated that he might have studied for more than a year. No wonder village bullies are different from ordinary people. Yu Yaoniang came in a shy way, afraid of being recognized by Li Ju and San. As expected, he was recognized, but he was angry and said with a stiff face, "Why can't I sign up?" Li Ju stretched out his hand, palm up, and smiled. "No, I can't. Pay the money first. That day you broke the door, the table and chairs, and it cost 8 yuan to repair them. Aren't you going to pay for it?" Yu Yaoniang's eyes widened, and he counted out 8 yuan to Li Ju with grievance. Li Ju handed the money to Suzuki and said, "Okay, don't forget to take the exam in a few days. The questions are very simple. If you really know how to dry salt, I hope you can really become the one who can provide food and clothing for the whole village and even the whole county in the future." Li Ju didn't have any special opinion of Yu Yaoniang. It was good enough for a village bully to know the limits, not to hurt people, not to molest girls, and to be able to control so many younger brothers. Maybe he can be a security guard at the technical station in the future? The efficiency of the second talent selection was much higher than the first time. Soon Li Ju selected 4 people as the team, and all of them were stuffed into the seaside to learn the basic knowledge of chemistry and physics involved in salt drying. Among them, there were 2 girls. Li Ju was also heading for the Tiger Mountain knowing that there was a tiger in the mountain. It was clear that Yu Yaoniang's affairs in the city had not been sorted out, and he buried 2 more mines for himself here. However, the 2 girls were too outstanding. Li Ju could not deliberately not choose them, because she would cause some trouble, even though he knew that someone could do things very well. The 2 girls were the families of the local salt field. One of the 26-year-old women was a salt farmer in her husband's family and her parents' family. The other 20-year-old widow was the daughter of the owner of the salt field. Both of them had considerable experience in working in the salt pond and were familiar with brine and salt drying. What was even more rare was that they both had the support of their whole family. The 2 men were Yu Yaoniang and the manager of a salt merchant in the city. Yu Yaoniang was not mentioned. He was a little stupid, but he was not a bad person. Another salt merchant's manager was over 50 years old and had blurred vision, so the owner didn't want to dismiss him. Li Ju valued the manager's experience. As for the presbyopia problem, couldn't it be easily solved with reading glasses? Chapter 359 Skilled Workers. Li Ju can only teach the principles, but the local skilled workers are still better at practical operations. As for the saturated solution of brine, after the 4 salt field backbones understood what solubility is, what is a saturated solution, and the difference between the solubility of refined salt and the solubility of impurities, the next thing was out of Li Ju's control. They quickly discovered grass seeds from the local area that can assist in judging the saturation of brine, and also explored the difference in the performance of saturated solutions in different seasons and humidity according to different temperatures. Yu Yaoniang has local prestige, and the manager has experience in pacifying civilians. The 2 use the money paid by Li Ju to hire civilians to directly open dozens of acres of salt ponds on the coastal beach. Taking advantage of the rising temperature, after a month, the white salt was all white. The people on the seaside of Booming County were completely convinced. Although Li Ju did not touch the ground, what he knew was really crucial. He himself could not tell how saturated the local mother liquor was, but he could teach others. With the white salt in front of people, the next thing would be much easier. Even if Ludang Dao disliked traveling merchants, he would still give the salt merchants a break. Who in the world doesn't eat salt? So the technical station of Booming County expanded again, but it was easier and simpler than Shengyang Prefecture. Salt is roughly equivalent to money, which is the most attractive thing. And because Yu Yaoniang and the former manager had been doing things for a long time, they knew the temperament of the people who came to the door. Those who were sneaky, cunning, and opportunistic were not accepted. Those who were generous and straightforward were selected, and they were guaranteed not to cause any trouble. Li Ju spent a lot of effort to brainwash them about their responsibilities, telling them over and over again that the purpose of the technical station was to promote and popularize the most advanced production technology. Once someone embarked on the road of private collection, the meaning of the technical station's existence would be gone. In the long run, this matter would become a flash in the pan. Judging from the performance of Yu Yaoniang and others, the brainwashing effect was not bad. Soon, the substations were built, forming a very clear learning teaching answering learning cycle mechanism. If the court puts money in place, it means that this Booming County has been successful. This also made Li Ju silently reflect on why Shengyang Prefecture was slower than here. I think that in addition to the fact that farming is not as profitable as drying salt, and the effect is not so direct, it is also because he has found fewer local snake-like characters. Since ancient times, the lower world has been intertwined and complicated. It is difficult for outsiders to break through without 3 to 5 years. The 3 backbones of Chengyang Prefecture are all good, but none of them have the keenness of Yu Yaoniang in the former steward. However, people with good nature, no selfish desires, and who can read and know a little business, how difficult it is to find such 4 here. It is completely luck to find such 4 here, and I don't know where the next one is. Li Ju finally wrote down the names of Yu Yaoniang and the girl who was guarding the door, and asked the 2 to register in Chengyang Prefecture, and planned to apply for official status for them. In the future, they will be people of the Chengyang Prefecture City Technical Station. The steward and the little woman stayed in the local area. In the future, they will be people of the Boming County Technical Station, responsible for transferring the knowledge of the prefecture city to the local area. After arranging the way for Yu Yaoniang and the little girl, Li Ju turned northwest without stopping, and went to a county called Ziquan on a slope with a forest. Li Ju, who already had experience, quickly selected 3 more suitable candidates from the applicants as a basic team of the Ziquan Technical Station. Ziquan County is basically on the hillside with a gentle slope. Except for the lack of water, there is no other problem. The word Ziquan actually meant rare at the beginning. I don't know which year it was changed to Ziquan. So the first thing Li Ju had to solve was the water problem in Ziquan County. Fortunately, the altitude here is a little higher, and the geological structure has the conditions for storing groundwater, and several sweet water wells can be drilled. After Li Ju organized the technical station in Ziquan County, the first lesson was about geological structure and hydrological environment. The second lesson entered the main topic of planting, which was the breeding, optimization and planting of apples. The geological structure and hydrological environment are aimed at the construction of water conservancy projects, from digging wells to building reservoirs, dams, and opening canals. Water conservancy projects were originally a long-term plan that Chengyang Prefecture had to put on paper. Since it made sense to dig wells here, and the terrain was relatively high, there was the possibility of digging canals and building reservoirs. Why not lay out water conservancy projects here? In the end, Chengyang Prefecture's capital city produced grain, Boming County used salt to support the economy, and Ziquan County was the water source, cash crops, and aquaculture base of Chengyang Prefecture. The 3 pillars of a local economy are vividly written on paper. The final economic development levels of these 3 places will definitely be unbalanced, but as long as the county governor is strong enough, this imbalance can be controlled artificially. County Governor Khan of Chengyang Prefecture can do nothing else, but he can definitely carry water. Moreover, the special political status of Chengyang Prefecture has given this place a more stable support, and people will be more conservative. On the one hand, they are not afraid of their property being suddenly annexed, and on the other hand, they lack the ambition to make progress, and are unlikely to fight for advancement. However, when setting up the technical station in Ziquan County, there were some problems that were not too big or too small. After the first batch of people selected by Li Ju learned to judge the storage point of groundwater by geological structure, they helped his village to fight for land with the neighboring village, and exchanged 5 stones of rice for a little land boundary, and exchanged the place with groundwater storage to his own village. However, due to the problem of groundwater pressure trend, the final groundwater outlet was still in the neighboring village. The well keepers here lost face, and the village lost 5 stones of rice. They were unwilling to accept it, and wanted to take the 5 stones of rice back. The lawsuit between the 2 villages was brought to the technical station, and to Li Ju. After Li Ju asked about the cause and effect, he withdrew the technicians who had been trained first, and selected 2 from the reserve. Thanks to the backward transportation and communication methods, it is difficult for Li Ju or the future person in charge of the technical station to effectively control the technical stations and technical points at the village and town levels far away from them. Therefore, the role of the technical station depends heavily on the personal ethics of the technicians. If it is someone like Li Ju, he will not be partial to him, even if he has offended him, but if he is selfish, such as the technician who watches the well, he dares to do such narrow-minded things under Li Ju's nose. Li Ju can imagine how far it will develop in the future. So Li Ju directly replaced him, and chose someone else. Even if the good people now will deteriorate in the future, the later the better. Except for this matter, everything else went smoothly. Because of the drought, the pursuit of fresh water by the people of Chengyang Prefecture even exceeds the pursuit of pure money. After Li Ju really led them to dig a few wells, the enthusiasm of the locals to learn hydraulic geology was extremely inflated, which was no different from the enthusiasm of learning salt in Boming County. In such an atmosphere, it was much easier for Li Ju to choose people. This time he chose 2 men to go to the prefecture city. They were a pair of brothers who traveled here to study. In Li Ju's words, these 2 nerds put all their talents on learning. They learned quickly and integrated quickly, and they taught others quickly. Considering that Li Yuan might not necessarily choose which path he would take, Li Ju decided to bring the 2 brothers back to the city as training instructors. Chapter 360, Lord Kang's brother-in-law. After Yu Yaoniang and others were brought to the technical station by Li Ju, they all applied for official status and were placed in the experimental field of the technical station to receive other scientific and technical training. Then they were forced to write their own technical summaries in preparation for passing on to other technical points 1 level at a time. Time has come to the hottest time of the year. The plum rain in Jiangnan has come to an end, and Ludong is finally about to enter the rainy season. Once the rainy season begins, the drip irrigation system will be temporarily closed and replaced by various water conservancy activities. People try every means to store more water for use in droughts. At the same time, it is also time to harvest wheat. Every household must take advantage of the sunny days to harvest the wheat and rush to store the crops before the rainy season arrives and prepare for the next interplanting. The crop that Li Ju gave them to interplant was sweet potato. This thing has spread, but it has not spread to Ludong Road. It is also a rare thing in Chengyang Prefecture. The planting technology is also within the scope of popular science and publicity of the Agricultural Technology Station. When the wheat began to be harvested, Li Ju had already begun to prepare for sweet potato seedlings. Xiaoshan was the first to settle down, and he showed signs of becoming one of the first batch of masters. Li Yuan decided not to accept the official position and would continue to take the exam in the future or strive to upgrade to a provincial technical station that is higher than the prefectural city. He speculated that the person in charge of the provincial technical station is at least a 7th rank official, and the 7th rank is very impressive. Yaoniang was a little uneasy. Li Ju's reply to her application for an official position should have come down in the next few days. Whether it was passed or successful, there should be an explanation. However, there was no news, and Yaoniang didn't know what happened, and she was left hanging. The little girl who was brought to the prefectural city by Li Ju was frightened when she saw that Yaoniang was also so straightforward. Thinking that she was different from Yaoniang, she had a husband's family after all, so she decided to ask for the title of a woman of the 9th rank Confucian scholar. Although it was a title for women, the rank was enough. She didn't want to be like Yaoniang, who was worried about gains and losses. The imperial edict for this little girl was issued very quickly. The official documents were basically official words, and there was nothing much to say. However, the governor of Ludong Road wrote a letter to Li Ju privately, and the wording was not so kind. Obviously, he was very dissatisfied with the fact that the woman was granted an imperial edict because she did something that only men could do. Considering that the governor was the son-in-law of the Ko family, a scholarly family in Ludong Road, Li Ju had no special thoughts about his conservatism. People were not targeting him. If they were really targeting him, this imperial edict would not be issued. People really felt from the bottom of their hearts that Li Ju was reversing the yin and yang of morality. Li Ju was too lazy to care and put it aside. He was going to do what he had to do next. He was going to recruit another backbone technician like a local snake for the Chengyang Prefecture City Technical Station in order to handle and balance the subsequent internal work. It was really difficult for them, outsiders, to do things in a detailed manner and go deep into the village in a short period of time. Only local snakes had such energy. With the principle of promoting relatives, Li Ju finally selected the brother-in-law of Kang Junshao from the applicants, that is, the son of a distant relative of the mistress of the Kang family. The family was so poor that they could not survive and only knew how to study. After the daughter married Kang Junshao and took office with her husband, she could help the family a little, and the family could survive. The brother-in-law who came to Chengyang Prefecture with Mrs. Khan was considered to be an unlearned and idle person. In fact, his family could not control him, so they had to hand him over to Khan Junshao for control. However, when the brother-in-law arrived in Chengyang Prefecture, he still did not do his job all day long, but only fought cocks and ran dogs. Kang Junshao saw that, although he was naughty, he did not make big mistakes, let alone bullying others, so he let him go. Unexpectedly, this man actually took the initiative to sign up for the technical station. The brother-in-law's surname is Meng, and he is generally called Meng Erlang because he is born burly, has powerful fists and feet, and is willing to fight hard, and some people call him Meng Erlang. Now Meng Erlang is nearly 30 years old, but he still has not started a family. Every time his sister persuaded him to get married, Meng Erlang would say, "I don't have a job to make money, why would I marry someone to share my hardships? I can feed my whole family, I'm happy and free, what's the big deal?" Then he ignored her. This time Meng Erlang was willing to sign up for the technical station because he was stimulated by his sister. When his sister went to his house to visit him, she saw that the books, pens, and ink she sent last time were not touched, and she couldn't help crying out of anger. Although Meng Erlang was unreliable, he was still good to his sister and brother-in-law, so he naturally asked about it. When he asked, his sister pointed out to him, "You never read family letters, or do your work. Although your brother-in-law and I can protect you for a lifetime, when we leave this world, how can we care about your future? If you have a son, will he be as miserable as you? Your brother-in-law always complains that the 12 hours in a day are not enough, but you waste your good days on nonsense things, and you still ask me. If I were not your sister, if I did not know that you were once a person who could memorize everything at a glance, and if I did not want to see you waste your time, I would have a lot to say to you, but I would not say a word. What do I want? I just want your own good." Meng Erlang said, "I don't believe that I'm such a big man, and I'm so hopeless. I just don't want to study, not work. There are so many people who study in the world, but how many of them can succeed? The most annoying thing is that some people obviously can't understand books, but they have to drag the whole family to fight for richer and jinshi, and the result is nothing but exhausting the whole family. It's better than me to understand. I know I'm not a good student, so I won't study. Sister, you just want to see me find a decent job, which is not difficult. I'll find one for you tomorrow." His sister was stunned for a moment, and somehow she thought of their father, who only passed the exam to become a scholar in his life, and he didn't know anything except studying. The family business was supported by his grandmother and mother. It's a pity that their grandmother is already 70 years old and still digging for food in the fields. It's okay in a good year, but in a bad year, they have to put on a smile, bend their backs, and go to the big Khan family in Ludong to ask for the favor of their mistress, in order to borrow a bowl of rice to live. It was because the mistress of the Khan family helped them a lot, that the young lady of the Meng family took the initiative to agree to go to the marriage proposal for the old editor Khan Huanagu, who was already over 40 years old. Mrs. Khan was silent, as if she knew her brother's thoughts. Meng Erlang was not bragging. He supported his sister here, and turned around to sign up for Li Ju's technical point. During the time when Li Ju came to Chengyang Prefecture, Meng Erlang watched coldly and saw everything. He felt that this person was much more lovely than his brother-in-law and even the dignitaries with whom his brother-in-law had contacts. Li Ju didn't read books, and he looked down on those who read books blindly. Look at the people he selected and praised, men, women, young and old, but there was no one who only read books. Therefore, Meng Erlang had long wanted to sign up for that technical point, but he was not very good at farming, and he didn't quite meet Li Ju's requirements for selecting backbones. Later, Li Ju selected people from the village, so Meng Erlang was even less qualified. After Li Ju returned, the Fuchan Technical Station posted a notice to recruit someone who was familiar with local personnel and general affairs. Meng Erlang thought, what a coincidence, isn't this tailor-made for him? So he signed up. Soon, Meng Erlang was directly selected by Li Ju for his excellent cultural quality and character, and was thrown into the technical station. Chapter 361, Letter from Hometown. Meng Erlang's talent for reading is actually quite outstanding. He still has the ability to memorize everything he has seen, even when he was 30 years old. In addition, he is flexible and can draw inferences from one thing to another. He can be considered a little genius. If it weren't for his early experience that made him hate the imperial examination, I'm afraid he would have passed the imperial examination at this age. In Li Ju's technical station, Meng Erlang is like a fish in water. His learning ability allows him to learn and understand the experience summarized by others like a sponge. His experience in the market makes him know the details of the people very well. Many places that Liu and others can't break through can be easily solved by Meng Erlang. For example, there is a technical point set up in a town under the city. People throw fesses and tear the wall every now and then. The technicians can still guard it at the beginning, but they resign after 3 or 5 days, and no one dares to respond. Li Ju knew that it was mostly the jealousy of the local elders. He didn't understand the local situation, and it was even more difficult to spend money. If he could break it, how could he break it in other places in the future? Li Ju planned to train Xiaoshan and Yu Yaoniang and send them to the local area to do some ideological work patiently. Meng Erlang suddenly appeared, brought 2 jars of wine into the village, and the next day he drunkenly informed Li Ju that he had convinced the local area and rebuilt the technical point that day. Li Ju was really convinced. In a few days, Meng Erlang passed the formal assessment. He completed the technical training for the salt drying technicians, and Li Ju gave the trained technicians a written test. The pass rate was over 90%. Even Liu had to admire that Meng Erlang really put all his talents into communication and expression. Meng Erlang seemed to have found his lifelong career and poured all his enthusiasm into the technical station. He pushed Chengyang Prefecture to set up 16 technical points all the way. On average, 6 villages and towns can be radiated by 1 technical point, which is basically enough. At this time, you can see how critical Meng Erlang's role is. He connects the government, the technical station and the people, and has the support of the government represented by the county governor. He is smart and not easily deceived. He is good at fighting and not easily bullied. He learns quickly and teaches well, and can quickly turn new technical points into practice. Li Ju watched coldly for a while, and basically decided to recommend him to be the core of the Ludang Road Technical Station or even a doctor, with a title of 7th rank or 7th rank. With Meng Erlang in charge of the general affairs of Chengyang Prefecture, Li Ju felt that he had found someone to entrust. Li Ju first asked Meng Erlang to be a 9th rank official, and then gave half of the sweet potato seedlings to Meng Erlang to take to class. There are not many sweet potato seedlings this year, and 80% of them are for planting, just right for teaching at the technical point. The planting technology of sweet potatoes does not need to be too detailed, and it is more than half of it by pinching the light, water, fertilizer, and heat, and it is also easy to teach. Meng Erlang learned and taught at the same time, and it took only 2 months to master the planting technology of sweet potatoes. Yu Yaoniang's official position had not yet been removed, and Li Ju had already reached the point where he could no longer bear it, and was about to write a memorial to the emperor. Finally, a letter of transfer arrived, ordering Yu Yaoniang and Meng Erlang and others recommended by Li Ju to establish a set of technical stations in other prefectures in Ludang Road. If successful, Yu Yaoniang and others would be directly awarded the title of 8th rank doctor. His Majesty the Emperor Li Ju could not interfere in the establishment of this technical station system. The reason was that Li Ju had already figured it out. That is, the technical station had to operate independently, and Li Ju could not save the world alone. If the technical station was separated from Li Ju, it would be a waste. Why did His Majesty the Emperor support Li Ju to build a technical station at the risk of the world's disapproval? He supported Li Ju to personally spread the technology in various places. Wouldn't that be simpler? Overall, it was an unexpected result. Li Ju also had enough confidence in Meng Erlang and others. To put it bluntly, the establishment of a system for the technical station was more difficult than anything else. Li Ju has already sorted out the entire process of examination selection study summary teaching, and the financial budget is also clearly arranged. When it is handed over to Meng Erlang and other practical people to do it, Li Ju can't think of any reason for failure. Meng Erlang also thinks so. Moreover, the prefecture city designated by His Majesty the Emperor for them to independently build a technical station is in Donglei Prefecture next to Chengyang Prefecture. The climate and customs are similar. The wheat, millet, sweet potatoes, apples, and water conservancy technologies provided by Liju can almost be restored and applied there. There are no obstacles to technology and knowledge itself, and it will not be too difficult to select and train technicians. Meng Erlang is full of confidence anyway. At least in the territory of Ludong Road, the name of his distant aunt, Mrs. Kong, is still quite useful. Master Ensign also has confidence in Meng Erlang and Yu Yaoniang. So he persuaded Li Ju to return to Qingshan City first, because Li Ju staying in Chengyang Prefecture to wait for news would not help. On the contrary, if he returns to Qingshan City first, he will have too many things to do along the way, because the departure time is 2 months earlier than planned. Master Ensign will follow Meng Erlang and others to Donglei Mansion, which is considered to be a secret escort for Meng Erlang and others. Li Ju did not know who Master Ensign was. He only vaguely felt that this person was from a wealthy family and was different from ordinary rich people. Since Master Ensign promised to escort secretly, Li Ju believed that with his energy, it would not be a problem to protect a technical station. In the end, what prompted Li Ju to decide to follow Ensan's advice and return to Qingshan City in advance was a letter from Fu Xiaoguiya of Qingshan City. Fu Xiaoguiya's letter was vague, but the meaning was in place. That is, the second prince had used his identity and money to unknowingly intervene in several industrial joint ventures hosted by Qingshan Li Yuan, especially the coal, cement, bicycle, and printing industries. Although the second prince seemed to be only buying up shares from other members and not interfering in the management, looking like he only wanted to collect dividends, Fu Xiaogi felt it necessary to let Li Ju know. The second prince's share in each industry was not large at present, but his acquisitions were still continuing, and with the government's share, it might threaten Li Ju's right to speak. Moreover, Li Ju's shares included the shares held by the pawn shop on his behalf. Once the shares of the pawn shop were separated, Li Ju's shares might be less than the second prince's. Fu Xiaogi wrote the letter at the end of May. By the time Li Ju received the letter, if the second prince was ruthless and fast enough, he would have at least occupied more than 30% of the shares in several industries. The second prince did not touch the textile industry, not because he was not greedy, but because he was waiting for Li Ju to solve the problem of cotton competing for production resources. If Li Ju did not solve the contradiction between cotton and grain, the second prince would rather earn less than intervene. He had a transcendent intuition in this regard. Although the textile factory progressed slowly under Li Ju's oppression, the second prince still saw another future that made him resist from the roaring machines. Qingshan City is Li Ju's base camp. Li Ju has been delaying the move to Jinling because he can't let go of Qingshan City. After receiving Fuji Yui's letter, Li Ju could no longer sit still. Finally, he talked to Ensan, Meng Erlang, Yu Yaoniang, and Yu Yaoniang, asking them not to give up easily, and then returned to Qingshan City. Chapter 362, Green Mountain Rice Expensive. Li Ju rushed back to Qingshan City from Chengyang Prefecture in a hurry. Along the way, he did not forget to check on the situation of the villages he passed by. The people who sold their children for money were gone. 70 to 80% of the places where Li Ju pointed out to dig wells at that time had water. With extra water resources, people who could not survive originally had more hope of survival. The wells dug in Huajia's village have been used. Huajia returned to the village with her daughter. She has been with Li Ju for so long and has understood many things. She has received a high monthly salary and earned a small mule. She has considerable confidence to gain a foothold in the village. However, what made Li Ju very unhappy was that the few wells he pointed out to the village were occupied by families with many sons in the village. This is also a helpless thing. Li Ju can manage it for a while, but not for a lifetime. In addition to helping, find a few more places to dig wells, so that water resources are not too scarce. It seems that there is no other way. Development solves all problems, and poverty creates all problems. Li Ju hurriedly looked at all the places he had been to. At least there was no major problem on the surface, so he dared to move forward. Suzuki could have followed Master Ensign back, but Master Ensign heard that something happened in Kingshan City, so he was no longer sleepy, but interested, so he ordered Suzuki to continue to follow Li Ju. So when Li Ju set out, there were 4 people, but there were 5 on the return trip. Suzuki, who was not very good at riding horses, had honed his riding skills on horseback. Li Ju did not send a letter home in advance, and the group went directly into the city to Lee Garden. The speed was so fast that Suzuki did not even have time to sight the prosperity of Kingshan City. The cement road bicycles and tricycles seen along the way were enough for Suzuki to form a new understanding of Kingshan City. I knew that Kingshan City had everything, but I didn't know that Kingshan City was not only at the level of having, but they even entered the level of popularization. If you say there is, where is there no recipe for cement now? There are textile machines and bicycles in the capital. However, it was nothing compared to the cement roads connecting every village in Kingshan City, where bicycles were everywhere. When Suzuki arrived at Lee Garden, he was shocked again. A double wooden track was built around the periphery of Lee Garden, and a mule was running with a full cart of goods on it. The mule's carrying capacity was very strong. It was not news that it could carry a lot of things, but it was news that it could run fast with a full cart of goods. Suzuki was just staring there, and Li Ju also glanced at it. He intuitively felt that the mule was not in a good condition, so he pushed Suzuki away and jumped forward to grab the protruding railings on the cart and the mule's rope. With Li Ju's strength, he actually spent all his strength and was pulled so hard that the veins on his neck and head were jumping. Before he could slow down the mule cart slowly slowed down, and the mule finally slowed down. After slowly stopping, he lowered his head and gasped for breath. At this time, Fugaya, Xiao Zhangong, and Ko Gong caught up with him panting. When Fugaya saw Li Ju, his eyes lit up. He rushed over, and his face, which had always been bitter, resentful and cynical, was full of emotion. "Master, you are finally back." Xiao Zhang, Lao Ko and many people behind followed him. Those with poor physical strength sat on the ground and panted, and those with good physical strength could not lift their heads. Li Ju looked around, puzzled. "What's going on? Don't sit down. You just finished running. Get up and walk around, otherwise I'm afraid you will die suddenly." Fu Xiaogi finally caught his breath and understood. The sweat on his forehead suddenly flowed like a stream. He said, "It's so hard to run steadily, but I can't stop. If you hadn't come to hold it, I'm afraid this mule would have died here." Li Ju understood at once that they had mastered the technology of wheels and tracks, but didn't pay attention to brakes. Once the large load was increased, the mule accelerated and completed it, like a gust of wind and lightning. The momentum was almost off the charts. It was not so easy to stop it. Add resistance to the track at intervals, and cooperate with the skilled driver to control the speed of the animals. In addition, tomorrow, no, the day after tomorrow, the day after tomorrow, let the carpenter who makes the vehicle come to me, and we will systematically learn about the braking system. Fu Xiaogi touched his head and said, "Okay, I will inform everyone later." "Sir, did you have a smooth journey? And who is this gentleman?" "I'm fine outside. This is the scholar that your sister picked up from outside with a bag of grain." "Don't say, he is really good as a dog-headed military advisor. I kept him and brought him back. Send him to meet your Mr. Huang and County Magistrate Zhao later. There are still many things to ask him to do in the future." Fu Xiaogi and Suzuki are both scholars, and the two of them quickly became familiar with each other. Suzuki also knows what Fu Xiaogi knows about the hardships of the lower class. Suzuki knows more about the upper class than Fu Xiaogi, and has traveled through most of the Yang dynasty. There is no need to elaborate on his knowledge, which must be very good. But after just one meeting, Suzuki conquered Fu Xiaogi. Fu Xiaogi would not tell anyone about Li Yun, but he admired Suzuki very much for his knowledge and way of doing things. Li Ju watched coldly. He had doubts about Suzuki, but he did not stop him. No matter what the purpose was, as long as it did not hinder his development plan, it was good. The group returned to their respective houses to wash and change clothes. Suzuki rested in the west wing and was settled by Li Ju in a small courtyard next to Suzuki. Suzuki's monthly salary was at the same level as that of Wu Guanjia, both of which were very high. However, when Suzuki planned his life with such a high monthly salary, he found out that the monthly salary that could allow him to live happily in Chang'an could only make him live a tight life in Qingshan City. Unless he does not save money, he really can't think of living a happy life. First of all, the labor cost of Qingshan City is really too high. Qingshan City does not allow the sale of people, so the servants of each family are hired through long-term and short-term contracts. These long-term and short-term workers will run away if they are unhappy with their work, so both the wages and treatment are good. The wages in Qingshan City are even at the same level as Chang'an. People are needed everywhere here, but the population is not large due to the carrying capacity of the city. Secondly, the price level is also very high. Qingshan City has a small population carrying capacity and relatively few land resources. The population, especially the rich and idle population, has exploded more than 10 times, resulting in extremely high prices for living resources. This is the season when fruits and vegetables are on the market in autumn, which is relatively better. Looking forward and backward, the prices of salt, sugar, and snacks are simply unreasonable. In addition, the housing prices are extremely high. The house that Wang Jiao bought before has tripled in just 2 or 3 years after he got it. Suzuki's monthly salary is good, but he can't afford a house. Finally, the taxes are high. The commercial taxes in Qingshan City are very high, and because the government intervenes in various joint ventures, the government knows the operating conditions of various industries very well, and it is difficult for merchants to evade taxes. However, because the government also has dividends, the commercial taxes imposed by the government are not high enough to inhibit the development of commerce. In addition, the agricultural tax and population tax in Qingshan City are getting lower year by year. In order to encourage people to produce food and breed population, the government has given a lot of preference in this regard. Chapter 363 Plot. Suzuki spent 2 days alone outside and then expressed to Wu Guanjia that he was willing to live together in Li Garden and finally solved the problem of food and clothing. Li Garden's policy of providing food and clothing has always been well implemented, but there are few options. People who are relatively wealthy or pursue individual characteristics gradually live alone. These two benefits are equivalent to 1 or 2 silver coins per month, and those who do not eat and drink in Li Garden can get an extra 1 or 2 silver coins. Suzuki couldn't stand it after living alone for 2 days. After calculating the accounts, Suzuki couldn't help but become curious. Why is it so difficult to survive here? But it is still rumored to be a paradise outside, attracting countless people. Later, when Suzuki took care of Li Ju's affairs, he couldn't help but take care of some ordinary people who were making a living. After returning to Qingshan City, Li Ju only rested for half a day. When he returned from exercise the next morning, he listened to Fu Xiaogi, Wu Guanjia, and Wang Dechen report the situation of the industry in the past 6 months one by one. In the afternoon, Zhao Sanjiu from Jinling also rushed back and listed the situation in Jinling. Jinling is better than Qingshan. It can be said that everything is ready, just waiting for Li Ju to move. Therefore, Sanjiu explained it clearly in person and came up with a few ideas. He hurried back the next morning. Qingshan City has a sense of undercurrent because the industries returned to Li Ju are normal and prosperous everywhere. The second prince is quite caring for Li Yuan's industries, no less than the favoritism of 3 consecutive county magistrates. Suzuki was full of suspicion. Although he had not had direct contact with the second prince, he knew very well that the second prince was the most difficult to deal with and the most treacherous among the princes of His Majesty the Emperor. His partiality and care came very strangely. The prosperity of Li Yuan showed that the situation of various joint ventures was not good. On the 3rd day after Li Ju returned to the city, after teaching Kao Gong, Xiao Zhangong and others the rough concept of the braking system and the basic method of braking, he convened the largest local joint venture, the textile dyeing joint venture, to gather for a meeting that afternoon. In the textile dyeing industry, Li Yuan has an absolute advantage. Since the spinning machines and looms were all made by Li Yuan, and Li Ju had always been very careful to control the scale of the textile factory, at present, this association was almost a one-man show for Li Ju. Li Ju, on behalf of Li Yuan, controlled 40% of the voting rights of the Textile Dyeing Association. As the first partner, Dyeing and Weaving Chen also took 10% through sales channels and his own workshops. Li Ju took 10% on behalf of the dental company. In addition, the government had 20%, and all other forces added up to only 20%. Everyone thought that Li Ju convened a temporary meeting of this association to target the second prince's acquisition of voting rights in other associations. Because now only the Textile Dyeing Association has not been tainted by the second prince. Unexpectedly, after Li Ju finished his polite words, the first thing he said was to take out 10% from his 40% and merge it with the 10% of the dental company and give it to the long-term workers of various textile factories and workshops. And this 20% of shares, like the 20% of the government, cannot be transferred, sold, or inherited, and must be held by the long-term workers in the industry, who organize and select representatives. The shopkeepers, managers, and representatives of the textile dyeing industry, including Dyeing and Weaving Chen, could hardly believe their ears. The first thing Li Ju did when he came back from the north was this. Li Ju thought that when other government officials also realized that they could control an industry association by acquiring and snatching shares from various shareholders, it would be too late to think about decentralization. Li Yuan took 30%, the workers took 20%, and directly took 50% of the voting rights, so that Li Ju could feel a little relieved. The best result is that the workers directly took 50%, and Li Yuan took another 10%. However, the number of long-term workers is not large enough, and their strength is not strong enough. It has not yet developed to the stage of the Luddite movement. Li Ju temporarily left the remaining 30% for future adjustments, based on actual conditions. Li Ju does not care who takes the money and eats the profits. He only cares whether the long-term workers can have their own say. In a sense, it is a good thing for the royal family / court / government and the big landlords and big businessmen to compete for profits. The competition will eventually enter the stage of irreconcilable production relations change. Isn't that a revolution? If the big businessmen in various industries dare not fight with the government / court, then everyone should just lie down and continue to be ruled by the imperial system. Li Ju has no need to fight for them, because Li Ju does not represent this class. After the Textile Federation was dealt with at the speed of light, it was the turn of the coal, bicycle and other industries. The Coal Industry Federation was developed from the Honeycomb Coal Federation. The daily fire in Kingshan City is still mainly firewood, and honeycomb coal is mainly used as a supplement in winter. Its main use ranges in the north, especially near coal mines. With the factorization and assembly linearization of various industries, there is a demand for smelting, which has expanded the use of coal. This is why the early Honeycomb Coal Federation has become a coal federation. This federation is not very eye-catching at present, especially in the Jiangnan area with abundant vegetation resources. There is really not much market. Li Ju knows that this situation will change when steam power comes out. At that time, the Coal Federation will become the most important federation, which directly determines how much power each factory can allocate. This day must not be too far away. After all, Li Ju has already introduced physics, and he also proposed the idea of introducing various seeds from overseas 4 years ago. When steam power and rubber are fully equipped, the roaring steam engine and internal combustion engine will wash everything away. At the coal joint venture meeting, the second prince, as a representative of the newly joined imperial merchants, also came. Honeycomb coal is very popular in the north, and the royal family already has its own coal mines. Jiangxia coal mine. 90% of the large mines are owned by the state, royal family, and half of the small mines are also owned by his family. So it is normal for the second prince to get involved in the coal joint venture meeting in Kingshan City. The second prince had not seen Li Ju for half a year. He walked in, sat down next to Li Ju, opened a gold star rosewood fan carved with dragons and phoenixes, fanned himself twice, and said with a smile, "My dear brother, I haven't seen you for a long time. You look darker, thinner, and more energetic. It shows that the trip to the north was not in vain." Li Ju smiled. "My dear brother, you have been much more comfortable recently. I heard that you have gained a lot." The second prince shook his fan. "You have misunderstood me. I'm only following the emperor's order. I think you should understand. The second prince's identity when he was traveling outside was an imperial merchant. He spent money without limit and had the support of the government. Everyone was afraid of him and said, okay. Li Ju said, so, what do you represent here, brother? The second prince replied, of course it's a representation. He is short of money. As long as the money is enough, everything is fine. Nothing else matters. Don't worry, brother. I guarantee that I will stand with you. After all, the government and the court have different ways of collecting money than ordinary merchants. In addition to business, there are also business taxes. The second prince was saying in a disguised way that he could tolerate low profits for a while. As long as the industry can be managed well and the commercial economy is developed, they can naturally make profits from other places. This is the difference between them as a real royal family and a royal merchant. Whether Li Ju believed it or not is another matter. He did not convene the Cole joint venture meeting to attack the second prince for purchasing voting rights and becoming the second largest shareholder after Li Yuan. He came to modify the proportion of voting rights and establish a technical station. Chapter 364, Dividing Equity. Since coal has not yet been discovered as a core power source, Li Ju redistributed the power ratio of the Coal Federation very easily. It is still 30% for Li Yuan, 20% for long-term workers, 30% for the government forces represented by the second prince and the imperial merchant forces, and half of the remaining 20% is taken by Liu, and the rest are at the bottom. Everyone seems to be indifferent. The income from this coal is really a drizzle. Unless you are closely related to the mine, you can't make much money in a year. Li Ju took the opportunity to throw out the setting of the technical station. The Coal Federation is the one with the smallest proportion of non-Li Yuan factions. If even the Coal Federation can't set up a technical station, there is no need to think about other federations. Li Ju thought of this method when he was working on the salt production method in the north. The agricultural technology station has a big constraint, that is, its economic source depends on the allocation of the court. This is not like modern times, where there are special funds. In ancient times, this kind of extremely grassroots non-violent agency basically relied on local financial supply. Originally, the grassroots finances of most places in Dayang were very tight, and they had to squeeze out some money from taxes to give to the technology station. Isn't this going to cost them their lives? 1 or 2 years is fine, but it's inevitable to slack off over time. Moreover, the agricultural technology station is not like other technology stations, which can quickly turn technology into money. The investment is high and the effect is slow, but people are short-sighted. How can a technology station be kept running healthily? Yu Yaoniang and his village's interest in the salt drying method gave Li Ju some new ideas. Using the big merchants and landlords as chickens to hatch the eggs of technological updates, the technology station has a channel to support the economy of the whole team. The technology station in Li Ju's imagination is no longer as official and pure as the future agricultural technology point, but is closer to a comprehensive teaching and research institution, with multiple points advancing together. As long as one point obtains technological innovation, it is enough to support the entire technology system. Now is a period of technological change. Many new fields have been opened by Li Ju. There is a blue ocean ahead. As long as there is a basic level of scientific and technological knowledge, it is not difficult to promote a little productivity improvement. The most important thing is that the coalition will invest in a small technical station with 2 craftsmen, which does not involve official matters and is not a bureaucratic ruling system. The court does not need to worry about it. Once the contract is signed and the money is in place, it can start directly. So Li Ju directly proposed at the Coal Coalition meeting that he would set up a technical station for the Coal Coalition. Everyone was very puzzled. Coal is just dug out and burned. What kind of technology is needed? Li Ju counted a bunch of them on his fingers. Technology for digging mines, technology for mine ventilation, drainage, and explosion prevention, technology for coal excavation and transportation, technology for coal grading, coal washing. Even if it is charcoal burning, there is a charcoal yield and fast-growing forest technology. Now everyone can't think of it, but it's not used in detail enough. Everyone was slightly moved. These technologies seem to have little to do with them, but these technologies can be used in other industries. That's very meaningful. The investment ratio of the technical station is also consistent with the voting rights. The government's part is shared in proportion, and the part of the long-term workers is temporarily paid by Li Ju, and will be returned to Li Ju when there is a stable income in the future. The final profit sharing is also consistent with the investment ratio. For the time being, a technological innovation doesn't cost much money. Compared with the already drizzling income of the coal industry, it's just a drizzle. What's more, the other companies only account for 10% in total, and their opinions can be almost ignored. But this doesn't sound bad, and with Li Ju's organization, they agreed readily. The second prince didn't think twice and directly voted in favor. In this way, a unanimous vote supported Li Ju to open a technical station for the coal and mineral industry in the name of the joint venture. The coal joint venture is relatively simple to operate, and the ones behind it are the trouble. Although Li Ju has a large share, the other companies spend more money. If there is a lot of money, doesn't it have to be considered more? Except for the cement industry, which was strictly limited by the government, it voted unanimously in favor very smoothly. The bicycle/vehicle, printing and other industries that followed discussed several agendas in a down-to-earth manner. In the end, there was even a joint venture that insisted on not setting up a technical station. It was the ready-made clothing industry that Li Ju had not participated in much. Li Ju had introduced the assembly line into the garment industry, which resulted in the entire Qingshan city becoming a sea of size-based clothes. Later, there were several profit processes and technical improvements led by female cutting and sewing workers, which were suppressed to an extremely low level. The ready-made clothing joint venture said that it did not want to roll up anymore and felt tired. Li Ju considered that the ready-made clothing business was actually the main business of Sanjiu, so he did not force it. However, it seemed that the sewing machine principle in his hand had reached the time to be handed over. The industry that is very secretive about technology will sooner or later know the value of the technological revolution. The current small fights are nothing. When the industrial age rolls up, it will really be a step behind and nothing will be left. Li Ju spent several days to finally build the framework of the industrial technology station in Qingshan City. The next step was to fill it with talents through the school. The industrial technology station is a purely civilian commercial project. Once the money is in place, people and materials can be stuffed into it. Then you can find someone who can calculate and understand the business to run it, and then you can wait for the finished product. After Li Ju distributed the voting rights, he called several persons in charge of the current textile factory, who were Zhang Zhaoxi and several female workers who were recruited later. Li Ju called them for only one thing, to build a trade union. It was still the same as the investment in the technology station. In the early stage, Li Ju paid the money, and in the later stage, the factory paid the processing union activity fee after it made a profit. Zhang Zhaoxi and others need to establish their own system, rules, and account books. There is a reason for choosing Li Yuan Textile Factory No. 1 to start. The long-term workers of Textile Factory No. 1 are the most knowledgeable group of workers in all industries, workshops near Qingshan City. Li Ju certainly has the highest expectations for them. If they can't run the trade union well, then the entire trade union organization can only be postponed. After Li Ju divided the voting rights, he set his sights on the technical station. When he sent it to the second prince, he felt very helpless. Whatever the second prince wanted to do, whatever he wanted to do, anyway, Li Ju had done everything he could do in the joint venture. Even if he didn't stay here in the future, the farmhands would have their own say. And Li Ju had to thank the second prince. When the second prince didn't make a move, the voting rights of the other families added up to far more than 20%. After the second prince made a move, at least on the surface, 20% was the ceiling. Except for Li Ju, who held 30% of the voting rights, other factions only had 20%. Of course, the government's share and the imperial merchant share added up to more than 20%, and there was nothing to be done about it. However, in the imperial era, the world was privately owned by the emperor, and the imperial power could do whatever it wanted. Even if Li Ju gave all 100% of the voting rights to the workers, it would still be useless in the face of the imperial power. But what Li Ju didn't know was that the part that the second prince plundered by relying on the imperial merchant actually went into his own pocket. He was short of money, and his plan was bound to cost a lot of money, so he had to make a fortune. And is there any bigger money bag in the world than King Shenliuan? The second prince dared to abandon his responsibility and separate from Li Ju, not only because he knew that the third prince would definitely keep an eye on Li Ju in Ludang, but also because he had to stay to grab dividends for himself. Especially since the three ports were being built in full swing, and the profits of maritime trade had long been proven by precedents. He could not give up. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 365 Wooden Track Installation. After Li Ju came back, he brought a group of craftsmen to solve the problem of the wooden rail car's brakes. To completely solve the problem of braking, the vehicle's own brake system must be relied on. However, Li Ju rejected the improvement of the brakes after only a few improvements were made. Because it consumed too much material, the key parts were seriously worn, especially the parts containing iron and copper, which did not meet the price requirements of large-scale equipment. So in the end, they chose to adjust the location of the road and choose the location of the station, temporary rest area, and fork on the slope. If the best location happened to have no slope, then the bridge should also be built with a slope, using the natural resistance of the uphill to increase the speed, and cooperate with the experience of the driver to achieve the purpose of deceleration. After solving the braking problem, the carpenters quickly built the first wooden track in the place where the experiment was approved. This wooden track connects Lee Garden and the school, and it makes a big detour from the inside of the city gate and passes through the west of the city, which is full of hawkers and day workers, very smoothly. The people of Kingshan City have been watching the wooden track car outside Lee Garden for half a year, and gradually they don't think it's strange, so this trial run did not cause much sensation. The road maintenance team that Li Ju hired maintained order along the way to prevent people or livestock from getting on the track and being hit by vehicles. The dynamic potential energy of heavily loaded mule carts and horse carriages is really not exaggerated. The driver, who was already very familiar with the wooden track, was a little nervous when he ran on the official road for the first time. At the same time, Li Ju, who was in the control group, drove another mule cart to serve as a foil. A small green flag was erected on the confirmed section of the road. The fence was released on the starting slope at the back door of Lee Garden. The driver pulled the reins and the mule trotted. After a long and gentle downhill, the mule gradually accelerated to a stable and uniform speed. It was a little slower than running empty, but much faster than pulling a cart on other roads. The familiar driving feeling appeared again. The driver had long discovered that running a wooden track car was easier than running on a cement road, as if the car body was much lighter. He adjusted the state of the mule according to previous experience to prevent it from getting carried away and flying out again. Not long after, Li Ju was left far behind. Mules running on flat ground run slower, consume more energy faster, reach a stable and uniform speed much slower, and maintain a shorter time. The wooden track mule car has already crossed a big bend and entered the first test bend to test the stability of the turn. There were too many mistakes on the bend before, which even directly led to the pinnacle of these craftsmen's research on centrifugal force and centripetal force. Ko Gong, who was responsible for the design of the bogie and wheels, was waiting in front of the serpentine bend for acceptance early. He was not nervous at all. He failed so many times and succeeded so many times. This time was just a routine situation in the experiment, which was much simpler than the extreme bend test. Sure enough, the mule car passed the bend smoothly, and then the fork test was carried out. The safety of animal-powered railcars is much higher than that of locomotive railcars, but Li Ju still used the future track change technology. That is, there will be a turnout at the fork to change the direction of the vehicle. At the fork test, the road maintenance team had already connected the turnout track in advance according to the schedule and turned the mule car to the fork in the other direction. As long as you know the route, it is not a problem to pass the fork in the road. The mule cart passed the fork at lightning speed and headed straight for the last difficult point they had to overcome, parking. Although parking is no longer a problem, at least during the test, it can be parked at a fixed point with a brake, and it is not impossible to stop the vehicle with emergency brakes. It only requires the driver to be experienced and calm the animal. But considering that this difficulty was overcome at the last moment, everyone is inevitably lacking in confidence. Most of the onlookers knew that the wooden track car had been stuck on the problem of parking difficulties for several months, and they were also helping Yu Yaoniang and his team sweat. The fork in the road leads to the rest area and the pause area, which is a slow uphill slope. The driver gradually slowed down the mule according to the load of the vehicle. Everything went surprisingly smoothly today. The mule was very well behaved and obedient. The vehicle was very stable, and the speed was completely under control. He steadily controlled the vehicle to climb up the platform at the top of the slope and finally stopped just below the pause flag. Yu Yaoniang, who had been waiting for a long time, led the cheering, and then a group of people turned around to show off to Li Ju. Li Ju was still far behind. He unloaded the car halfway and rode the mule, but was still a little slower than the rail car. When they arrived at the stop, there was already laughter and joy in the stop. Just by listening to the sound, one could tell that this stage had been passed. Li Ju felt relieved, jumped off the mule, took the reins and walked in. The younger Yu Yaoniang jumped over and hugged the mule that Li Ju brought, shouting, "Master, reward." Li Ju smiled and said, "Reward, of course. Let me see where the car stopped and how long it took." The person in charge of timing reported the time, 1/4 and 3 minutes. Very good, much faster than a normal person running, and there is a full 600 kilograms of pulling force load. No wonder Yu Yaoniang and his men were so happy. This speed and load basically announced the arrival of a new era of transportation. Li Ju also breathed a sigh of relief and quickly put the wooden track into the main road to connect it. The travel time from Jinling to Qingshan City can be shortened to about 5 days. Although the time is not shortened much, there are more people in one car, 6 or 7 at least. If you calculate carefully, the transportation capacity has doubled, and this is still considering personal safety in the premise of controlling the speed of the mule cart. If it is replaced with a horse carriage, it may only take 3 days. Li Ju announced on the spot that each of Yu Yaoniang and his team would receive a basic bonus of 15 taels of silver, a total of 345 taels of silver. In addition, the project bonus of the wooden track car will be paid according to each person's contribution, and the total bonus is about 600 taels. Even though everyone knows that Li Ju never hesitates to give technical bonuses, the number of nearly 1000 taels sounds terrible. Just as everyone was discussing the bonus, Li Ju took the opportunity to announce the establishment of a technical station. Obviously, rail transportation will soon be on the agenda of Qingshan City, and the establishment of a rail transportation joint venture is also a matter of time, so the technical station will naturally be put on the list of preparations. Currently, only a small number of upper-class people in Qingshan City and some students who have joined the technical station know about the technical station. Li Ju stayed in Chengyang Prefecture, where he was unfamiliar with the place, for more than half a year for this thing, and he lost a lot of weight when he came back. After Li Ju came back, he did not rush to find trouble with the imperial merchants first, but went straight to the meeting to set up the technical station. This made people look at the technical station differently. However, no matter how they looked at it, it was just a matter of a group of craftsmen. At most, the craftsmen in Qingshan City were very rich, so there was some difference. Most of the onlookers just took it as a joke, but the second prince and the staff of Magistrate Zhang of the neighboring new county, Suziake and others, had already pricked up their ears. Chapter 366, Saving the Country in a Roundabout Way. Railway cars will be the main means of large-scale heavy-duty transportation in the future. Long-distance transportation may not be feasible, but short-distance transportation such as mines and quarries is definitely useful. Li Ju was in a small room at the newly established rail transit technology station, with a huge starched cloth map hanging behind him. It was a simple map of the section from Qingshan City to Jinling, with contour lines, mountains, rivers, roads, and villages specially marked. The red areas were the locations that Li Ju circled himself and suggested deploying wooden rail transportation. And what you have to do is to conquer another technology, rail casting and vehicle power. For this purpose, I also recruited blacksmiths and students studying mechanics from the school. The staff is 1/3 each. This is a composition. The money for the technical station now mainly comes from my private supply. In the future, there will be mines joining, and they need rail technology, so they have to spend some money to buy it. The government may also purchase technology to build roads between the two places, but the money will not be too much. The most important thing is to give the government recognition, which is a good thing for everyone. Li Ju circled several places where money can be made. Some of these are places where Li Ju's business partners can install tracks first, and other places will naturally follow up with NV. The most basic situation is this: you overcome the difficulties and let them pay. The same is true for other technical stations. In the early stage, our station will be closer to the mines, so I will bring the coal technical station as your partner. The coal technical station was established only 2 or 3 days ago, and the staff are still being recruited. The craftsmen who don't want rail transportation can directly convert on the spot. The map was turned over by Li Ju, and the next thing is the basic prototype of the steam engine. To put it bluntly, it is the conversion of heat energy and kinetic energy. This concept has now been taught thoroughly in the physics system of the school. Li Ju believes that it is only a matter of time before the craftsman can make a practical steam engine by comparing it with the drawings. And after the installation of the wooden track, the demand for more powerful power such as steam engines will greatly increase. In order to further obtain higher profits, the merchants and mine owners who control money will definitely push the technology station to delve into more powerful power. This is the business plan of the Rail Transit Coal Energy Technology Station in the next few years. After the explanation, the second prince, the investor who was listening, was the first to raise his hand. Give me a set of this technology. I want to take it back to Chang'an to use. Apart from anything else, this transportation capacity alone is very good. Chang'an now has a population of nearly 800,000. Only a small part of the living resources of these 800,000 people can be solved in Chang'an, and most of the others have to be transported in from other places. Considering the taxes collected from various places and transported to Beijing, the transportation capacity demand is huge. Now the main materials entering Beijing are transported by canals, and there will be sea transportation in the future. These two methods solved the problem of long-distance transportation from other places, but did not solve the last mile problem from the dock to the warehouse. The second prince came here just for this problem. In addition to the second prince, Liu Zhang also immediately expressed his desire for this technology. Apart from other things, wouldn't it be appropriate to use rail cars between the 3 ports and the storage center? Sea transportation is generally bulk commodities, and rail cars can be arranged for short distance land transportation. The staff sent by Liu Zhang is an old man from the Zhang family and a confidant of County Magistrate Zhang. He is very smart. He dared to make the decision on behalf of Liu Zhang, which shows that he is decisive and resourceful. There are also more resourceful people. After watching the rail car that day, some of the smarter ones immediately went to stockpile wood. Timber is needed to lay wooden tracks, and they are scrapped quickly. In the future, every foot of track will swallow countless wood. Now not only do we have to stockpile wood, but it is also better to go home and plant trees. Those places that are not suitable for growing cotton should plant trees quickly. Oh, and the scrapped wooden tracks can be used to make paper pulp, and the downstream paper making workshops can also be connected to form a complete one-stop service. Even if the people in Kingshan City are stupid, they have been polished to be smart in recent years, because those who react slowly can only follow others and eat dust, so now they are all very smart. If Li Yuan makes a little movement, they can immediately figure out everything up and down. Li Ju took over the laying of wooden tracks for a small section of the road. When he bought wood, he found out that the price of wood had skyrocketed. They are all talented people. Li Ju was convinced from the bottom of his heart. But on second thought, this is also a good thing. Kingshan City is no longer the Kingshan City that needs him to manage everything. The residents of Kingshan City have learned how to coexist with the high-speed Li Yuan. When the track from Jinling to Kingshan City is repaired, Li Ju can move to Jinling with confidence. Li Ju had already marked the tracks of each section, and the rest was arranged by County Magistrate Zhao. After communicating with other counties and prefectures, Li Ju provided the craftsmen, technology, and money, and the other county provided the people and the other part of the money. This was not difficult. On the way to Jinling, there were old acquaintances like Lao Wu, who would naturally not ask for anything. Moreover, they only needed to pay half of the money and laborers, to greatly improve the efficiency of freight transfer to Qingshan City and Yuline. This business was profitable in every way. Even if Li Ju's favor was not considered, it was completely worth taking the initiative to invite them. This pile of things could be arranged, but it was not urgent. The second season of intercropping in Jiangnan was a busy time, and the seaside ports and transshipment centers took away most of the people's manpower. To build this kind of public construction track, we can only wait until the slack season of farming. That would be after October. Li Ju threw all the things that needed to be done outside to Suzuki and Fujiaogi, and he set up technical stations for various industries as planned before, and gave them the future technical directions one by one. By the way, he also set up the agricultural technical station. It was the rising price of wood that gave Li Ju inspiration. The price of wood has risen, so it is not too much for him to come up with a whole fast-growing forest variety, right? Since we are going to develop fast-growing forests, it is also logical to put it under the forestry technology station of the agricultural technology station, right? However, this fast-growing forest is now mainly serving the rail and paper printing industries, so it is no problem to temporarily hang it under the name of the rail technology station. Since fast-growing forests are the main direction, aren't they the 5 major research areas of light, heat, water, fertilizer, and soil breeding? Transfer the relevant technicians in advance to form a team. As long as everything goes well in Chengyang Prefecture, the name here will be changed directly to the Agricultural Technology Station. If you are lucky, you can also transform other technical stations into a part of the bureaucratic system, thereby helping craftsmen complete the transformation from the bottom of the civilians to the bottom of the bureaucracy. Thinking of this method of sneaking through Chinchang, Li Ju made a prompt decision and asked Yu Fu to help select a few young people who were really determined to go down this path from the students of biology agronomy, and paired them with the second generation talents of Li Yuan who were particularly familiar with the local areas, and formed a small team. In name, they were to cultivate and study the fast-growing locust trees, poplar trees and fir trees, provided by Li Ju to meet the needs of laying wooden tracks during the slack season this year. In fact, it was a thorough Jiangnan agricultural technology training station. Li Ju felt that this should be possible. At least when he left, the situation in Chengyang Prefecture was not bad. There was young Master Ensign watching over it, and County Magistrate Kang was Meng Erlang's brother-in-law. He had money, power, and local tyrants. The path of the technical station itself was also right. Li Ju really couldn't think of where it could go wrong. Chapter 367 She's coming again. Soon it was the slack season, and the first phase of wooden tracks that Qingshan City had discussed with the outside world was put into construction. The designated areas were bustling with activity. People did not feel cold even in winter wearing jackets and sweatshirts. Some wealthy families were in the second and third phases, and they learned that the rail transit technology station was still researching more durable steel rails, and they even wanted to go straight to the rails. In order to get the follow-up technology out as soon as possible, these families were willing to spend money and people, and sent their own craftsmen and slaves to Qingshan City to learn technology and help. They even built technology points there, after getting Li Ju's permission. Just before the slack season, Qingshan Jinling technology points emerged like mushrooms after rain, especially those involving money-making industries. Almost every town had a point, and spontaneously formed the state of Li Ju's plan. Qingshan City provided technical training, and outsiders came to learn, and after learning, they went back to train local people. In fact, such a prototype had already appeared 3 years ago, and later, when the mule machine came out, every wealthy family sent people to learn from it. Now it is just a clear path and the industry is relaxed. Princess Chengyang was not idle in Jinling City. After she handed over her piece of land to Sanjiu prepared the water-powered loom factory of the second textile factory there. Of course, this factory could not use up all the land, so Princess Chengyang accepted the suggestions of Li Ju and Sanjiu and built a factory next to it, doing machine production, assembly and maintenance training. Jinling's textile technology point was also set up here. Princess Chengyang chose a career that, like Li Ju, had no intention of making money. She just wanted a small scale, high technical content, and useful to people, which was very much in line with her preferences. She had been an assistant teacher in a school, and she was good at physics. Therefore, Chengyang herself served as a professor and a part-time teacher for the relevant technical training of this water-powered loom, from the production line, assembly line to the final parts replacement and maintenance, and worker training and use. Factory director. The superficial reason was that she was the only one who was suitable, so she did it reluctantly. In fact, Princess Chengyang herself preferred the profession of a teacher. It seems that her talents and interests are also here, so she is more reliable than Li Ju when she is an assistant teacher, and she is like a fish in water when she teaches. As a princess, she always cares about the face of the royal family. Teaching is fine. She teaches mechanical maintenance and the like, and the apprentices she teaches are servants of various merchants and landlords, or craftsmen outside, who are far different from her in status and position. So even if it is for the sake of this training technology station to continue, Princess Chengyang put on men's clothes again, and concealed her identity. Knowing that Li Ju paid half of the money to upgrade the track between Jinling and Kingshan City, Princess Chengyang counted her own purse and took out some money. She also lobbied the wealthy businessmen in Jinling City, and together with Yunnan, dispelled the saying that the rail car was regarded as an ominous thing and strange and lewd skill that was circulated in the upper class of Jinling. When Li Ju didn't know it, Chengyang had helped him solve many troubles, and Chengyang had no intention of letting him know. If things can't be done, there is no need to add trouble. When the progress of various road construction projects was halfway, it was a new year again. According to the holiday habits of King Shenlian, it was natural to rest from the Little New Year to the Lantern Festival. This year was neither good nor bad, but compared with last year, it was always good. So Kingshan City had another lively new year. Li Ju had leaked some news before. After the new year, he would take Fu Xiaogi to Jinling. Although he would come back in the future. After all, the permanent base was not in Kingshan City, so the meaning was different. He entrusted the agricultural industry of Kingshan City to County Magistrate Zhao. County Magistrate Zhao was born as a local gentry and had been friends with Li Ju for several years. Because County Magistrate Zhao had been managing local affairs for many years, he guessed that Li Ju was a little unusual, but he never told anyone a word. Over the years, Li Ju trusted him. Zhao and Li Ju were just short of sworn brotherhood, and the two families were considered good friends. This kid has a good character. Even if he can't get a good name in the imperial examination, he will definitely not be bad as a local official who cares for the people. Zhao has gotten older these years, and has become more calm in his work. He should also exercise himself. In addition to Liao Zhao, there are also Liao Huang and Liao Yu. The school still relies on Liao Yu a lot. The advantage of Liao Yu is that he will not interfere in things he does not understand. The things taught in the school are very messy now. Liao Yu rarely interferes with things other than biology and Confucianism. Because he is smart and studious, he also knows a little about other subjects, and is difficult to be deceived. Now, he is still the most suitable person to guard the school. Not to mention Huang Zhi, Li Ju saw the best image of an ancient scholar in him. Morality, personality, and knowledge are not bad at all. He is neither old-fashioned nor pedantic. In addition to dividends, Li Ju also has a share of other industries in Kingshan Lian. In addition, each business node has a dedicated manager to control it. Li Ju decided to withdraw from other matters and let Huang Zhi take over. Huang Zhi may not be able to lead Kingshan Lian to a better future due to the constraints of the times, but his endowment and nature will never allow Kingshan Lian to be in irreversible danger. After these three, there are Yu Sanlang, Fu Xiaogi, and Zhao Li. The talent echelon is quite clear, and Li Ju may not be able to control it. The second prince was quite happy about this. Without Li Ju, he would have more room. God knows how difficult Li Ju is to deal with. Li Ju is generous, but he is as careful as dust. He can find loopholes by just scanning the account book. With such a person controlling the overall situation, the second prince dare not go too far, even if he has plans, so he can only eat dividends and profits. Only when he leaves, can the second prince get room to maneuver. However, the second prince is also scheduled to leave for Guangxi in February, 10 days later than Li Ju. 10 days is a short time. When Li Ju just left, his prestige was still there, so I'm afraid there are no loopholes to exploit. So he didn't have much time, and he had to intervene in Ningbo Port in Yu County, so it was inevitable that he would lose sight of one thing while focusing on another. Therefore, even if Li Ju left, he couldn't do what he wanted to do in a short time, so he could only wait patiently for the opportunity. In short, everyone was happy this year, and this year was quite lively. The second prince had never seen so many things when he was in Beijing. I think the population in Beijing is large, and the money per person is not as much as that in Qingshan City. The trend is naturally not as good as that in Jiangnan. Yu County is about to open sea trade, and there are many more foreigners on the streets of Qingshan City. Various cultures and folk customs are unified into a framework by Dayang's Central Plains culture, but they retain a rich and colorful form, so it looks more like 100 flowers blooming. Some people dislike this kind of blooming, is too messy and too vulgar, and the things of the common people and the foreign countries are not up to the standard, but they have to admit that such a hodgepodge is more flavorful. Some people like this kind of mixture very much. It is true that 100 flowers bloom together, and wildflowers and miscellaneous flowers also bloom, but it is better for flowers to bloom than to wither. At least that is what Princess Chengyang thought. Princess Chengyang quietly came to Qingshan City to celebrate the new year. The New Year's Day in Jinling City is not bad. What is gold and silver? What is luxury and boasting? What is a competition for novelty and color? What is sin and pity? None of them are as good as the joy of Qingshan City. So Princess Chengyang came to Qingshan City incognito to celebrate the New Year's Day and brought her third brother, Ansan, who had just arrived in Jinling. Chapter 368. The third prince is here. The third prince and sister Chengyang had not seen each other for 2 years. The third prince saw Chengyang was radiant and youthful. Chengyang saw the third prince was mature, as if he had grown up overnight. The siblings lingered in Jinling for a while, and found that they both wanted to find Li Ju as soon as possible, so they came to Qingshan City in advance. On the way, Chengyang enthusiastically introduced the situation in the Jinling Qingshan City area to the third prince. The third prince seemed very happy, but Chengyang always felt that he had something on his mind. The third prince didn't want to say it, and Chengyang didn't want to ask, so they had to talk about happy things. Fortunately, the third prince was close to Chengyang when he was a child, and the two had some similar hobbies and ambitions. The third prince would probably like the things that Chengyang would be happy about. After they arrived in Qingshan, they did not rush to find the second prince or Li Ju, but pretended to be siblings from other places who came to study abroad and spent a civilian year among the crowd. Qingshan is really different from other places. I thought it was unusual to have female weavers in Jinling, but I didn't expect that women here could go out to do business and chat and laugh with male businessmen. It started when Li Yuan promoted several female managers. Mr. Li said that this was inevitable because there were not enough men. With female managers in Li Yuan, other families also began to abandon gender stereotypes and only selected people who were suitable for work to lead the work. Chengyang took his third brother to watch the Spring Festival Gala in a small private room of Dayan Club. Half of the people crowded upstairs and downstairs were women. Some of them came as family members, and some came to discuss business on their own. But I don't know whether it's good or bad. As far as I know, there are already 2 girls who were asked by their families to stay and run the business because of their extraordinary talents and were forced to become self-combed. Self-combed means that the girl changed into women's clothes before getting married and would never marry again. One of them was willing, and the other had a fiancé. Now her fiancé and her family are arguing, and the lawsuit has been going on for half a year. The third prince was very interested in this matter. In the end, who won? The princess looked at him strangely. This is Qingshan City. Of course the person in question won. The person in question set up her own business and became a female household. Her family used to make ready-made clothes, but now they mainly make paper patterns. If Kingshan has any new clothes or new jewelry, she will make a cutting book and match it with the paper patterns to sell outside. That's good, that's good. The third prince was relieved and once again felt deeply moved by the extraordinariness of Kingshan City. Everyone in Kingshan City had a bright face and happy eyes. When he walked on the road, he didn't even see beggars and vagrants. It was said that, because the fiscal revenue was high enough, Kingshan City tilted a high expenditure on the poor. Now, when farmers in Kingshan City are sick or in disaster, they will directly ask the government for money, and the government will generally provide additional relief. Homeless people are also taken in by the poor, and arranged for some municipal-related odd jobs. Even the third prince felt that Kingshan City had a preliminary sense of datum. Although the rich in Kingshan City are as extravagant as those in other places, the rich here have to work hard to expand their wealth. They are not prodigals who lie down to eat, drink and have fun, and people's living standards are very high. Li Ju will focus on the lowest level and master it and saw it when he was in Chengyang Mansion. This is exactly why the third prince is biased towards Li Ju. Unlike other places, after the Lantern Festival, Kingshan City gradually resumed its production order, and Li Ju was also ready to quietly set off for Jinling. In order to prepare for the arrival of this great god, Sanjiu did not return to Kingshan City for the new year this year, but stayed in Jinling to make the final preparations nervously. Even though those who stayed behind were reluctant to leave, even though Li Ju couldn't bear to leave his good brother and good daughter, Li Ju still chose the early morning of the 17th day of the first lunar month and set off before dawn. Fu Xiaoge was originally scheduled to go with Li Ju, but in the middle of the year, Yu Ai suddenly found out that she was pregnant, and Fu Gia, who was about to become a silly father, could not leave. She stayed behind and waited until the child was 1 month old before the whole family set off. Li Ju took the opportunity to dump all the internal affairs of Li Yuan on him and then took Su Xiaoge away. However, just 10 miles away from Kingshan City, Li Ju met Chengyang and the third prince who were waiting there. Chengyang was still wearing a men's robe, all made by Sanjiu himself. The goose yellow straight body was worn with a gradually dyed white to dark purple vest, just as bright and beautiful as every young man. The third prince's was much more plain. He had not yet caught up with the fashion in Jiangnan. However, the belt with a vermilion red and golden phoenix pattern and a pearl and sapphire flower pattern on it was a trendy item in Jinling. It was clear that sooner or later he would be conquered by the romance and beauty of Jiangnan like his sister. Why is the princess here? Chengyang and his friends were waiting in the pavilion of the post station with their horses. Li Ju and his friends also dismounted and went to pay their respects. Chengyang returned Li Ju's half bow and said with a smile, "We have already arrived at Kingshan, but I wanted to go with you on the way back, so I waited for you here. How are you, sir? I haven't seen you for a long time, and you look more energetic. I'm young and frugal this year. People who are free from worldly affairs will naturally be more energetic." Li Ju also smiled, and when he saw Anson standing next to her, he figured out his identity in a flash. "Brother Anson? Are you the third prince?" The third prince bowed and said, "In order to conceal my identity in Chengyang Prefecture, I did not tell you clearly, and even deceived you. Please forgive me. When I arrive in Jinling, I will apologize to you." Li Ju knew that the three of them were sent out with their own tasks, and of course he would not be angry with them. Special matters require special methods. What's wrong with it? But I don't know how the technical stations in Chengyang Prefecture and Anglai Prefecture are after I leave. The third prince sighed. The technical stations are good, and there have been some changes. There is nothing we can do about it. We have to compromise with those companies in Ludang Road. Let's talk about the rest on the way. The road from Kingshan to the north was mostly wide cement roads that could accommodate 2 horses running side by side. The third prince rode side by side with Li Ju, and Princess Chengyang followed behind, along with Yu Yaoniang and Grandma Sun. The mute, Yu Yaoniang, the third prince, and Chengyang's guards were scattered in front and behind, clustering Chengyang and the others in the middle. because after you left, the money that the technical station had to spend in the past was allocated by the local government, so it was inevitable that they would have to repeatedly write articles to prove that the technical station really had to spend so much money. Since the money was spent, they naturally had to write something to summarize that the money was not wasted. I think this is nothing, and it should be so. After all, the local government use the people's taxes to pay the bills, so naturally the local government has the right to control how the money is used. But, after a long time, there will inevitably be differences in closeness between the inside and the outside. Qingyang Prefecture is okay, as the prefect Kang is more cautious and will not interfere. It's hard to say about other places. As far as I know, Donglei Prefecture wanted to apply for some money to buy a net for demonstration for a fishing net to remove algae, but it didn't apply for a whole month. It was still Brother Meng who was more spiritual and took another way to get this thing done. I have experienced the sectarianism and factionalism that Mr. had criticized at the time. It's really not good. We must encourage ourselves. Chapter 369. Hot Face. After listening to the third prince's complaints, Li Ju could only sigh. He knew how difficult things were in Ludongdao. But on the other hand, Ludongdao also had advantages. That is, the word loyalty and the word righteousness were hanging there. No matter how factional, prejudiced and bureaucratic the Ludongdao was, they would not do anything to bully others. In this regard, Jiangnan could not compare. There were many wealthy people in Jiangnan who forced people to the point of family destruction for money and interests, such as the incident in Yu County, and those that Li Ju encountered when he first came. Of course, Ludongdao also had people forced to death, and of course, eating up families. That was inevitable. But there was no such thing as robbing and looting openly. The two northern ports had been open for so long, and there were rarely any problems. But in Jiangnan, Li Ju had heard rumors that pirates had colluded with Jiangnan's business companies to ambush in advance. Although the matter did not succeed, the news itself was scary enough. Li Ju sighed and said, "You are a prince, and you will definitely be useful in the future. As long as you remember what I said today, and the hardships of the common people, it won't be in vain." The third prince said, "Of course, I hope that in the future, everyone can live like they did in Kingshan City. Everyone can live well, and there will be no discrimination or harm between people." How wonderful. Li Ju remained silent, and did not criticize the idealist's ideals and drag him back to reality. The third prince said again, "There is something I didn't want to tell you, but I feel that I still have to tell you." Li Ju gave him a strange look in return. The third prince said, "Yaoniang is dead." Li Ju's heart suddenly sank. What happened? How could she die? She was forced. She, Meng Erlang and then Yu Yaoniang have been working hard since they arrived in Donglei Prefecture. When they set up the Donglei Prefecture Technical Station, they recruited some people. Among them, there were 2 unmarried girls who were willing to comb their hair and serve the emperor. The girls' families reported to the prefect and said that they abducted women and children. The prefect found out that Yaoniang was unmarried and mingled in the market all day, which was immoral, so he ordered her to get married. I was worried that she would not be able to work after she got married. Considering that my identity of Anson was fake, I wanted to marry her with this fake identity so that her husband would not become a hindrance. Li Ju responded, "That's thoughtful." The third prince is a broad-minded man. Even if Master Anson was a fake identity, marrying a commoner girl would still affect his reputation in the future. My little bit of heart cannot compare to your great ambition for the world. The third prince continued, "The plan did not succeed because the prefect himself was attracted by the identity of young Master Anson and wanted to marry his daughter to him. Yaoniang was forced by the prefect to marry the manager of an industry of the Khan family in Ludong. As for the Khan family, you and I both know that it is absolutely impossible for female members to show their faces in public. After Yaoniang got married, she was not allowed to see us, even if she wanted to. Niu even wanted to snatch her away, but just as he made the plan, Yaoniang committed suicide." Li Ju was silent. He could no longer remember Yaoniang's appearance, but he would always remember the light and ambition in Yaoniang's eyes. The third prince finally said, "Yaoniang is gone. But no one will be punished. because even if it is the governor of Danglei, his actions cannot be said to be wrong. Later, Danglei Technical Station did not recruit women anymore, and the new financial officer was a cousin brought by Meng Erlang from his hometown. I think so. Maybe Yu Yaoniang is not suitable for other places except Kingshan City. She was born in the wrong place and era. Li Ju said, it is the place and the era that are not worthy of having an ambitious and capable woman. Fortunately, Sanjiu and Yaoniang do not have to go through this, and fortunately, the princess was born in the royal family, and they have the support to persevere. I hope that in the future, your sisters and daughters will have such luck. At that time, everyone will have it, and it can't be called luck. The third prince looked back at the princess. He has always respected this eldest sister very much. The eldest sister found her career in Jinling, and the third prince was very happy for the eldest sister. In his happiness, he couldn't help but feel a little worried. How long can this happiness last? The eldest sister is just waiting in Jinling for the storm to subside. Sooner or later, she will return to Chang'an. I know Yaoniang, it's your little sister. Who is this Sanjiu? I think my sister mentioned it too. You'll know when you get to Jinling, a very powerful steward. Thinking of Sanjiu, Li Ju finally felt a little happier. In any case, he completely changed the fate of Sanjiu and Xiaolian, and through them, he completely changed the fate of many other people. He can't manage the world for the time being, but as long as he persists and protects them to continue to work hard, he will definitely be able to manage the world in the future. His hand can't reach too far, but the hands of many people can reach far. The news of Yaoniang's death affected Li Ju's mood a little, but it didn't last too long. Looking back, there are countless lower class people whose bodies have been wiped out, and looking forward, there are ordinary people who are struggling hard. He can't be trapped by any emotions. The group shuttled through the busy road construction projects and village expansion projects and arrived in Jinling in early February. Sanjiu took Gizzy, Chuzan and others to the post station outside the city early, and Eugene and his wife also came. They wanted to see their daughter as soon as possible. Because Yuai was pregnant, she did not come with them this time, and Fugai was reluctant to leave his wife, and did not come either. The Fu family couple would not come either, as they were afraid that Fugai would not take good care of her, so they stayed at home and surrounded their daughter-in-law. So no one from the Fu family came this time. If they did not come, Madame Yue still wanted to go to Kingshan City. She loved her daughter like the apple of her eye, and she was so anxious when she did not see her for a year. Now that she knew that her daughter was pregnant with a little grandson, she could not sit still. If she was not afraid of being rude, she would have hired a car to rush to Kingshan City on the spot. Sanjiu wore a robe that was almost as eye-catching as Chengyang, a long green lotus-colored gown, a moon-white folded skirt, and a sky-blue vest. The shirt and skirt were embroidered with daffodils, and the vest was decorated with a few butterflies, which was lively and vivid. In the past 2 years, Zhao Sanjiu rarely wore men's clothes except for special occasions. She was dressed in an ordinary woman's outfit, but she could do everything and get into everything. A group of women like her have appeared one after another. Thanks to the rapid development of Jinling in recent years, there are not enough men who can keep up with the speed of development, so naturally there are women who can keep up. Under the stimulation of making money, who cares whether it is a man or a woman who is in charge of the family business? The most important thing is that the family does not lag behind the talents. Zhao Sanjiu, like Princess Chengyang, is doing well in her favorite field. A sense of satisfaction and pride arises spontaneously, and they show moving spirit and pride in their body language and demeanor. The third prince just found his sister when he went to Jinling last time. Because Chengyang was in a hurry to go to Kingshan City, he didn't bother to stay in Jinling, so he didn't see Sanjiu. Today is the first time they have seen each other. The third prince's face was hot, and his neck and ears were red. Chapter 370. Asking despite knowing the answer. The third prince was feeling embarrassed, but no one else noticed him. Sanjiu was busy reporting to Li Ju. Chengyang was busy talking to Sanjiu. Yaoniang and Gezi were also chattering about Li Yuan's property in Jinling, and everyone overlooked the third prince. So no one noticed the third prince's sudden silence. He didn't want to interrupt, so he just followed behind his eldest sister, leading the horse. Sanjiu was talking to Li Ju and Chen Guiyang about the Fengrang Marquis mansion in front, and didn't notice that there was an extra young master among the group. Your Highness, how about having dinner at the Marquis mansion today? In order to welcome the master and congratulate him on his new home, the kitchen has prepared a table of delicious dishes. We won't be able to eat after today. Everyone knows that our master is the most stingy. Sanjiu asked with a smile. Chen Guiyang was about to agree, but suddenly remembered that he had a younger brother. He waved to the third prince, led him to the front, and introduced him to Sanjiu, saying, "This is my younger brother. I'm bringing him with me today. Just tell me if you can bring him along. If you can, I'll go with him. If you can't, then you can't, and I'll send him home first." Sanjiu hurriedly greeted the third prince and said with a smile, "Of course it depends on your arrangement. Don't you know about our master? What can he object to? Today, the master of the Yu family, the master of the Yu family, and the young master of the Yang family are also here. On our female side, we also have the second lady, the eldest wife and the eldest lady of the Guo family. It's going to be quite lively." Sanjiu listened and realized that they were all local noble women who got along well with her. She said, "That's thoughtful. Let's go back and change clothes and come in a while. Well, I'll ask the master to pick you up in a quarter of an hour." Sanjiu made clear arrangements for Li Ju. Everyone went their separate ways at the Marquis mansion. Yu and his wife and Li Ju entered the Marquis mansion. The princess and the third prince took a half step forward and turned to a quiet house, which was the permanent residence chosen by the princess in Jinling. Chen Guiyang went to pack up and changed into a red shirt and dark blue robe that could meet outsiders. He wore a white magnolia flower crown on his head, which was very handsome. The third prince thought that he had to find another place to live. He had to hide his identity, and it was not suitable for him to live with Chen Guiyang. So he only found a few robes to change into. The other luggage was not moved. He just waited until he found a place to live and sent the luggage to move in. Chen Guiyang had nothing to say about this. He just showed the third prince several relatively quiet residential areas nearby, meaning that he suggested that he find these places. After a while, Li Ju and Sanjiu came to pick them up in person. Sanjiu did not change his clothes, but Li Ju changed into the red dragon robe bestowed by the emperor, with a white jade belt tied around his waist, and his face was also tidied up, showing his upright and handsome appearance. The third prince knew at a glance that he was being outdone, and said with a smile, "Brother, you are such a talent, but why don't you have a good sister-in-law to take care of you?" Li Ju replied unhappily, "I was impatient with all this, but Madam Sun insisted that it was my first time to meet people in Jinling City, so this was necessary. It's strange. Am I ashamed to meet people in this official robe?" Chen Guiyang smiled and said, "Respect the robe first, and then the person. Otherwise why would my father insist on letting my three brothers go on a secret visit? Once we put on the official robe, we can't see the truth underneath. When we go out to meet the guests later, just say that my brother is a friend you met in Chen Guiyang mansion, and he came to the south to do business and broaden his horizons. That's all. I know, it's the third young master and let's go then." Madame Zhao has spent a lot of effort, but she refuses to tell me what she has prepared, and I'm very curious. Sanjiu did spend a lot of effort to put together a buffet-style dinner. The banquet was held under the glazed tile flower shed. There were rockeries, ponds, and streams in the garden. The rockeries and rocks were cleaned up, and mosses, mountain ferns and ground cypress were planted, imitating the wildness of the mountain peaks. The winter sweets planted on the ground were fragrant, and the daffodils beside the artificial stream were blooming in a sea of flowers. There were also flowers that had been planted in the greenhouse for a winter, and they were also moved out, such as the bowl lotus and crab apple planted in the pot. There were 7 or 8 kinds. Although the weather was still cold, spring was already in the air. The flower shed where the chef served the food was the center, and a curtain separated the east and west sides, which belonged to the male guests and the female family respectively. If the guests were a young couple, the curtain could be removed, and they could have fun. The buffet was also carefully arranged. Most of the food was prepared by the chef on the spot, so that the guests could enjoy it at the best time. Only a few stew pots and desserts were prepared and placed on the shelf for free. Those shelves were also specially made by Sanjiu, with a heat source underneath, to release heat to maintain the temperature. Everyone can enjoy this small garden with wine in hand. If they want to eat something, they can ask the servants to get it. If there are special needs, they can also ask the chef to change it on the spot. After getting it, find a place to enjoy the scenery nearby and sit down. While eating and drinking, they chat and laugh with others about the scenery. It must be called elegant. Li Ju only walked around and listened to everyone reciting poems about flowers and composing poems about stones. He really didn't have much interest. After the greetings, he sat down in a corner of the glazed tile flower shed and concentrated on enjoying the food. Because it is inconvenient to be extravagant, Li Ju rarely eats a lot at home. Every day, he just eats a few home-cooked dishes, which is similar to any other person in Liyuan. There are not many high-end banquets like today in a year. Li Ju was no longer used to the light taste of jiangnan, but now he is used to it. He can also adapt well to the taro paste and sand duck. However, Jinling has become more and more fond of sweet food in recent years. It seems that people have some money and are willing to put sugar in their cooking. The food is so sweet that it can almost kill bees. Eel shreds sprinkled with a layer of white sugar, crispy roast chicken covered with a layer of honey, and caramel colored pork belly. Li Ju wanted to run away when he saw it. Chen Guiyang came over with his brother, and the entourage put down a few bowls of freshly baked dishes, which were very typical of the northern taste. Li Ju glanced at her and moved aside. Chen Guiyang was not polite and sat down opposite him, saying with a smile, "Your Miss Zhao is really a talent. How did you come up with this idea?" Li Ju replied, "There are some in the past, but they are not as detailed as Miss Zhao. Besides, it's okay for a few of us to eat and drink, but with more people, we will inevitably lose sight of the big picture." The third prince said, "It's better to have fewer people. For example, my taste buds and Master Yu here are very different. It's hard to eat at the same table. It's better to have more space." "Hey, is that the Miss Sanjiu that the eldest sister can't forget?" Chen Guiyang smiled and picked the meat from the roasted quail leg with a small silver skewer. He said, "Who else could it be but her? Didn't you ask a lot of questions before and said that she is ambitious and capable? You are also a smart person. Why are you asking questions in front of her master now?" Chapter 371 Status and Official Position. Li Ju was confused about being mentioned, and he couldn't interfere with a witty conversation between the brother and sister. He could only invite them to eat, and then eat his meal himself, like an ostrich. The third prince was afraid that his sharp sister would see his thoughts that he shouldn't see, so he didn't dare to ask nonsense, and changed the topic and said, "Sister, I actually just want to ask, with the life in Jinling being so difficult, don't you want to start your own business? Whatever you and I do, we are competing with the people for profit. Unless we don't earn a penny, we are stealing food from other people's mouths. I have a fiefdom, you have royal merchants and taxes. Do you really want to do it yourself for a little profit? But I did set up a primary school in Jinling, and I teach people how to use their Li family's machines. I think this is good. I won't be bored, and the people also benefit." The third prince said, "My sister and I have different ideas. If we steal food from other people's mouths, we also have to consider who we are stealing from. If we steal the business of those rich and unkind people, but do charitable things like Brother Li Zian, how can this be considered competing with the people for profit? So, I think we should not only fight, but also earn more." Chen Guiyang asked, "You and I are thinking about people and the people at this moment. How do you know that you and I will still be like this in 10 years? How do you know that when our family business is passed down to the next generation, they will not become the people you call rich but unkind? I have thought about this matter, and I have thought of some ways, but they are not very good." The third prince looked at Li Ju. "So I want to ask Mr. Li what Mr. Li plans to do. I will do it. Since I'm not good at this, I will not waste my brain and leave it to those who are good at it. Brother Li Zian, you must have a way, right? What can Li Ju do? Even if he distributes his property to each household, he can't stand someone making false accounts and deliberately ruining the family by selling it at a low price. Do you know the methods of selling national property at a low price in the future world? but he certainly can't get involved in the opinions of the siblings, so he can only respond vaguely, "Let me think about it, let me think about it, you eat, eat." This is Miss Sanjiu's heart, it can't be wasted. When Li Ju mentioned Sanjiu, it was finally quiet here. Chen Guiyang resisted the urge to scold him, and quietly chopped off a quail, slowly ate the shredded pork, and occasionally whispered to the maid, "Has Sister Shan sent it? Don't ask her to wait, just say I'll be back later today," etc. For a while, the Confucian scholars outside were inspired to write poems, talking about Li Ju reciting a book song Guozhi, and dragging him out to comment on the romantic affairs. As soon as Li Ju left, Sanjiu came staggeringly and sat down on the low stool next to Princess Chen Guiyang, saying with a smile, "What do you think, Princess?" Chen Guiyang patted the large pearl chair next to her and asked her to sit up, saying with a smile, "Great. I've been wanting to ask you for a way to open a small shop like this in the capital, which will be just right for our female relatives to have a private gathering." Sanjiu said excuse me and sat down next to where Chen Guiyang pointed, saying, "It was just what the master said casually. If you want to ask for it, your highness, just take it. I'm not bragging, this idea may have been thought of by others. The most valuable thing here, apart from the flowers in the greenhouse outside, is the chefs who are omnipotent from all over the world. That's really precious. To put it bluntly, this buffet must have different flavors from all over the world to make it suitable for people to eat in turns. Otherwise, what's the difference between it and our family banquets?" The third prince heard that Chen Guiyang seemed to be planning to open a self-service restaurant, and he had obviously put aside his previous idea of competing with the people for profit. He was ready to join in the conversation, but he saw that Chen Guiyang and Sanjiu had already gathered together and started to whisper about where to hire a chef and how to transport the ingredients. They had already discussed everything and were just waiting to get it ready. It was not convenient for him to go over his sister to talk to Sanjiu, so he had to sit back in a sullen manner and swallow his words back into his stomach. They ate and played at the buffet, and the battle line lasted from the afternoon until the new moon crossed the sky and the stars were shining. It was not until after the second watch that the music ended and the guests dispersed. The female family members went back early, and the male guests and their wives went to sleep in the guest rooms. I had a great time yesterday and had a good night's sleep. I was refreshed the next day. It was also the first time for Eugene and others to carefully appreciate this Fengrang Marquis mansion. I felt that there was an indescribable special atmosphere, but when I tasted it carefully, there was no trace of it. The third prince had not carefully seen the gardens in Jiangnan, and without comparison, he could not say anything. Eugene and Madame Yu, who grew up in this environment, felt it deeply. This strange feeling made Master Yu, who had obsessive compulsive disorder, unbearable. After thinking about it again and again, he still couldn't help but ask Li Ju, did Brother Li Zan clean this place himself? How could he understand these things? Let him clean it himself. What plants, trees, rocks are here? I'm afraid the pond has been turned into a fish pond and the garden has been turned into farmland. I can see that this is the work of Madame Zhao. Chen Guiyang saw it at a glance. This place is just like mine, exquisite and spacious. The beauty of it is that, in order to make it convenient for people to move around, some of the scenery has been removed. There are fewer views at every step, but there are still many carved beams and painted buildings, and the colorful paintings on them are even more gorgeous. That's why it's different from other places. I travel everywhere every day, and I find that it's more comfortable to live in my own garden. This is exactly the reason. Li Jiu said, it's not bad to change it into fish ponds and farmland. I'm the Marquis of Fengrang, so shouldn't I do something prosperous? Sanjiu said, Master, please spare this place for guests, and look at the back door. I bought such a large piece of land, dug a 1-acre fish pond divided into 4 grids, and built a 2-acre greenhouse. Now I'm piling up base fertilizer. There are 6 acres of land on each side of the greenhouse, and 3-story houses have been built for you to recruit students and give classes. Everyone was wondering why the Fengrang Marquis mansion had a visible end and was smaller than an ordinary house. After listening to the explanation, they realized that it was a result of the vacating and incorporation of some land purchased from outside to become Li Ju's experimental field and Jinling Academy. All along, Master Yu, the son brought to Jiangnan by the old censor Yu, did not speak until he saw the neatly arranged greenhouses and the clear and round fish ponds with his own eyes. Then he said the first sentence in a serious tone. My father was worried that Marquis Feng Rang would indulge in prosperity and forget his original intentions when he arrived in Jinling. It seems that my father was worrying too much. Marquis Feng Rang's. He hesitated for a moment before finding an identity to give Sanjiu. Marquis Feng Rang's sister has such insight, so Marquis Feng Rang will not forget his responsibility. I dare not forget it at some point. Li Ju was very satisfied with his back garden. He walked around the field twice and even grabbed the soil with his own hands to confirm that the soil quality of the 12 greenhouses here was different. He was even more satisfied. Miss Ao did a good job and deserves a reward. I don't know when women can become officials. I really want to give the vacant official position here to Miss Ao. Sanjiu felt sorry in his heart and smiled. Master, you are talking nonsense again. I don't care about being an official. Anyway, I'm doing these tasks with the protection of His Highness, the care of Yu Yaoniang and Yu Yaoniang, and the support of the master, and no one dares to stop me. If I really accept the official, there will be a lawsuit. Chen Guiyang said. So, will you be so nameless and without status for the rest of your life? I'm still scared when I think of what my third brother said about Donglei Mansion. At this time, I haven't returned home yet. The two gentlemen are sensible people, and Mr. Li has not gone far away, so it is convenient for you to act. When I go home one day, Jinling City will be ruled by someone else. Mr. Li is away on business, and someone wants to make trouble for you. What will you do? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 372 Don't Set the Flag Randomly 1. Chen Guiyang was horrified when he thought about the incident in Donglei Prefecture, where Yaoniang was forced into marriage and had no chance to get involved in the family business and ended up dying. Although a subordinate official cannot catch up with the times and is not in the eyes of others, he is still an official after all. It's troublesome, but this official position can protect you after all. The third prince followed Li Ju to Chengyang Prefecture and was very familiar with the technical station. He could feel Sanjiu's painstaking efforts when he saw this backyard and felt that she was different from others. He also offered advice and said, although it is not easy to give an official rank to a woman outside, but Feng Ranghao is different from others, so it may be possible. When he was in Chengyang Prefecture, Feng Ranghao asked for an official rank for Yaoniang, and it was just a little bit away. In the end, it didn't work out, not because he said he couldn't give an official rank, but because Yaoniang was forced to death by Donglei Prefecture. As for the entanglement, Yaoniang is a woman, which is indeed the biggest reason, but the technical station itself is not a formal bureaucratic system, which is another reason. Now we are in Jinling, the atmosphere is open, and Feng Ranghao already has a quota for subordinate officials, not a separate new bureaucratic system. If we ask for a title for the girl, I think it should be easier than when we were in Chengyang Prefecture. It was the first time that Sanjiu took a serious look at him. He saw that he was a handsome young man with a square figure. Like Li Ju, he was tall and big, with a fair complexion, thick eyebrows and big eyes. He looked a bit like a brother to Li Ju, but since he did not have any military experience like Li Ju, the third prince had more of a scholarly air. Chen Guiyang was sincere in his plan for Sanjiu, and he felt that what he said was very pertinent, so he also said, I didn't know about your affairs in Chengyang Mansion before, so I couldn't say anything. This time I know. If you really gave it to Madame Zhao, then I will also write to mother and father to plead for mercy. After all, your subordinates are just your own private affairs, and I believe they won't care too much. My third brother and I can help to talk about it. How can it not work? Li Ju was not a timid person and replied readily, in this case, then I will try. Madam Zhao will be my subordinate, and I will train a few more assistants in the future. Hey, everything will be fine. Chen Guiyang smiled and said, Sanjiu was busy all the time before she became your subordinate. Now that she is your subordinate, what will happen? If I train a few more assistants for you, what will you do? I feel sorry for us, Miss Sanjiu. When I hear this, Sanjiu was happy in her heart, and she was even more moved by what she said. She hurriedly bowed to Chen Guiyang. Thank you, Your Highness, for your trouble. If it really works out, I will never forget your teachings. What can I teach you? I just joined in the fun and happened to be familiar with you. Chen Guiyang smiled, and when he went back to wait for Li Ju to write some memorials, he also wrote a letter back to His Majesty the Emperor and the Empress. His Majesty the Emperor didn't care about these things. Anyway, the official position was given to Li Ju, and it was his own idea to choose someone. It was a bit unusual for him to choose a woman, but it didn't interfere with other things. She could also help Li Ju build a seed greenhouse, so didn't this achieve the original intention? The Empress had to help her daughter even more. Her good daughter had been gone for 2 years, and she had never done anything except asking about her well-being. It was rare for her daughter to speak, and it was not a big deal. She just had to say a few words when His Majesty the Emperor asked, and she didn't have to take the initiative to mention it, even if he didn't ask, but it was not difficult. However, the Empress checked her daughter's letters again, especially those that had other words besides asking about her well-being. She found them all, and read them under the lamp for a few times. Suddenly she sighed heavily, and ordered the head maid to put them away. The queen's wet nurse, Chen, watched the maiden put away the boxes, and put down a crab apple box filled with 8 color fruits and cream puffs, saying, as for what happened outside, Your Majesty will not be entering the harem today, but will stay in Ganlu Palace. This is a small bowl made with the new recipe Your Majesty got today. Ask someone to send it to Your Majesty to try the taste. If it's good, send it to the young master in Jiangnan. The queen lazily flicked her fingers and said, put it away, and try again tomorrow. Chen glanced around quietly, but didn't see any problem, so she asked bluntly, Master, what's wrong with this? The queen was about to find someone to discuss this with, and said, it's not because of my little. As soon as the words came out of her mouth, she took them back abruptly. Where did this come from? She thought it was wrong to say that the only times her precious daughter pleaded for mercy were all for Li Ju. Let's not talk about where the groundless talk came from. Just say that this matter itself is not so easy to say. Let's not talk about this. By the way, our girl and the young master of the Yang family have been divorced for more than a year, right? Chen counted on her fingers. Yes, I vaguely remember it was after the rain in the summer of the year before last. I remember when they divorced, they said on the surface that the Yang family was eager to have a grandson, but our girl was in Jinling and couldn't come back for a while. In addition, they were in the wrong, so this was what we wanted. So, did his family remarry? Master, have you forgotten? The other day, Your Majesty specially held a banquet for your birthday and invited all the ladies in the capital to come and celebrate. Madame Taifu brought her daughter-in-law and gave her a coral ruai for longevity. The daughter-in-law of the Yang family is white and plump, and you praised her for being fertile. Oh, yes, that's right. I've been distracted these days and forgot about it. That means his family has already found someone. That's good, that's good. The queen felt relieved and did not want to say much. She asked the letter asking when her daughter would return to be kept and not sent. She also asked the snacks to be served. After trying a few bites, she picked 4 of them and sent them to Jiangnan. With the tacit approval of His Majesty, Li Ju openly made Sanjiu his subordinate official and asked Chuzan, who had been in contact with the outside world for the past 6 months, to learn more from Sanjiu. Sanjiu was worried that she might have to let go at any time, so she suggested that Gizzy and others should be brought along to learn, in addition to Chuzan. So she took them along. Originally, Sanjiu had been a man of her word in Qingshan City for many years, and gradually developed the confidence to say what she meant. Later, when she arrived in Jinling City, she had to suffer some grievances in order to be considerate of others. From the time she was ordered to make furnishings for Princess Chengayang to this year, when she was managing Li Ju's property, she had been involved in many lawsuits. After taking the status of a subordinate official, things were different. Sometimes she could even represent Li Ju himself in her actions. And because Li Ju didn't like to handle things with status, and was impatient with this kind of communication, San Jiu might have spent more time on behalf of Feng Ranghao than Li Ju himself. San Jiu felt relieved immediately. Li Ju never paid much attention to girls. It was not until San Jiu changed into the official robes of an official, picked up the card for handling affairs, and showed an obvious smug look, that Li Ju suddenly realized that San Jiu was also ambitious. It's good to have ambition, but it's scary not to have ambition. Li Ju was still frightened by Yu Yaoniang's move of turning around and marrying someone else. San Jiu took the letter of appointment and looked at it over and over again with a happy face. Li Ju sat beside her, gnawing on the dried sweet potatoes that had been dried last year. He said as he ate, "San Jiu, Madam Zhao, this is not the first time you have been given an official assignment in my house. I have only one thing to say, don't work for a year and then quit because you get married. If you catch me off guard, I would have to look around the world for someone else to find me." San Jiu was so happy that she didn't hear clearly and responded vaguely, not even knowing what she had responded to. Chapter 373 I have never seen such a fresh and refined big sister. I want to marry Lady Zhao. At the same time, Princess Chengayang was painting flowers in the garden, and the third prince was squatting on the steps, poking at the newly planted flower pots in the Li garden. He suddenly said this while poking. Chengayang was so scared that the small outline pen in her hand fell, leaving a large pool of ink on the paper. Are you serious? Madam Zhao will not be a concubine, and she will not give up her own property. Our family will never accept Madam Zhao as the prince's principal wife. What are you thinking about? The third prince continued to poke the weeds in the flower pot. I have thought about it seriously. I'm the third son, and it is not my turn to think about the future, so my identity as the imperial concubine is not that important. But my property will still be managed by the imperial concubine in the future. If I marry a lady from a wealthy family, her appearance and temperament may not be better than Madam Zhao. I will have to spend 10 times more effort to teach her, and I may not be able to teach her to be compatible with me. As he spoke, the third prince became embarrassed. Madam Zhao is different. Needless to say, she is beautiful. Even the girls selected in recent years cannot compare to her. She is also a very good person. If I ask Madam Zhao to manage the family business in the future, I can rest assured. With her around, I don't have to worry about the person next to me not being able to be of the same mind as my husband and me. And secondly, I don't have to worry about my future children not being of the same mind as my father and me. Sister, think about it, isn't it? Chengayang really thought about it and said, I've never seen anyone describe lustful so refreshingly. It's not like I haven't seen women who are as straightforward, good at business and broad-minded as Madam Zhao, and you've met them too. You insist on marrying her, isn't it just because she's beautiful? The third prince continued to be coy. It can't be said completely that it's not, but if it's just about her beauty, I wouldn't be willing. Princess Chengayang took down the painted flowers, threw away the ball of waste paper, spread another one, and began to recite some articles and poems. The third prince was still chattering. Although she is a widow, it is our family tradition, and my eldest sister knows it. As for the fact that she has a daughter, isn't that even better? Princess Chengayang gave him a murderous glance, and the third prince hurriedly explained, I mean, this way we won't have to worry about not having a daughter in the future, and besides, this will give our own child an older sister. An older sister is good, and an older sister is the best. Sister, do you think what I said is possible? Chengayang wrote and drew as he spoke. You said that, how should I know? You can ask our mother what she thinks. If she thinks there is a possibility, then there is still a chance. If she refuses sternly, then you don't have to think about it, and don't bother her. It's not easy for Mr. Lee to find someone he likes, so can you just take him away without any reason? Oh, I see. I'll write a letter tonight. The third prince felt better when he heard that his sister didn't object. He looked up and saw his sister frowning and tearing up the new paper. He asked, Sister, what did you write? Am I asking you to marry your friend and making you unhappy? No, it has nothing to do with you. Yu Yaoniang put down her pen. She couldn't paint today, so she might as well go for a walk outside. She tore up the paper with a few lines of articles and poems, gave it to the maid to burn, and went back to her room to change her clothes. She asked the third prince to wait for a while and accompany her. The spring breeze was warm and fragrant. The fragrance of blooming flowers, the wood smell of grass and trees, and the fishy smell of awakening soil were gathered into a warm breath by the soft wind, gently touching the soft curtains and clothes. It also touched the slowly burning paper and ink. I return the pearl to you with tears in my eyes, and I regret not meeting you before I got married. The third prince can let go and pursue Zhao Sanjiu. The eldest prince also took this step bravely before. But what about her? Where is her mind going? The Fengrang Marquis mansion next door. The warm wind also penetrated into every room with the noisy sounds of insects and birds. The anti-moth work has been done long ago, but the insects will not lose any opportunity to develop. In the blink of an eye, spring is already halfway through. I wonder how the spring plowing in Kingshan is going. I'm not here this year, so I'm always unsure. I've never done spring plowing in any previous year. Li Ju has already filled the greenhouse with people and put fish fry in the pond. However, he was doing the work in Jinling, and he never let go of Kingshan City and Chengyang Prefecture. The basic industrial package of Kingshan City has been dismantled. If I don't keep it under control, I don't know if the follow-up will be smooth. I don't know if the technical station in Chengyang Prefecture can be maintained in the hands of those bureaucrats. If it can't be maintained, my idea will be in vain. After all, I can't keep an eye on one place. If the technical station is to be promoted nationwide, it must have the ability to operate on its own. If it really can't be implemented smoothly, I will take it back and concentrate on my school. Call Meng Erlang, Yu Yaoniang, and bring Li Yuan, Xiaoshan and others with me. At least I can keep a spark for future generations. Li Ju could only think about it. He was determined not to go to Kingshan or Chengyang Mansion to see what was going on, but I'm here to tell you that I'm safe. Unlike Kingshan, Jinling was destined to start many things from scratch. Jinling's business was more developed, agriculture was relatively lacking, and people were not so enthusiastic about farming. After all, working outside earned more than digging for food in the soil. Who would be willing to dig for food in the soil, as long as there was an opportunity and a way? Li Ju took the opportunity of spring plowing to set up an agricultural technology point managed by the Marquis Mansion. When the wealthy families outside knew about it, they couldn't help but sigh a few times, implying that they still hoped that Li Ju could bring more advanced textile and other technologies here first. Apart from anything else, the water-powered loom, they were always greedy for it, especially the few families who didn't squeeze into the tribute. They were all doing low-end business, and they were still hoarding cloth for the sea trade this year, so they were more eager to improve the efficiency of textiles. It was not just a matter of the textile industry. They seemed to be sure that Li Ju's arrival would make textiles more developed, so the cotton and linen upstream, and the dyes, and printing and dyeing craftsmen downstream, all rose in price. On the surface, it seems that Li Ju just needs to copy the technology of Kingshan City to Jinling. If you think about it carefully, it is not that simple. Jinling's agricultural foundation is very poor. The government warehouses and private warehouses were emptied the year before last. Last year, only a few harvests were harvested, not even a quarter of them. This year, many families have greedily bought a few acres of cotton for money. More people have to put their efforts into the cotton fields, and it is inevitable that they will fool around with the crops. Don't underestimate these acres of cotton. Every household is greedy for a few acres. Some desperate people planted cotton on the land that was reported abandoned after the flood the year before last. This should have been land for growing grain. Overall, it is terrible. Li Ju is a little skeptical about how much grain Jinling can harvest this autumn. Even if Jinling generally grows the high yield 3 families brought by Li Ju, isn't this still a short time? After Li Ju finished calculating this account, his first reaction was that it was time to take out the greenhouse water conservancy and soil fertilizers again. However, when it started to promote, problems arose. 95% of the population in Jinling can't read. Li Ju and his family who knew agricultural technology were talking until they were dry-mouthed. How many people could they teach during this short spring plowing period? Chapter 374, School Reopens. Li Ju's business was now well managed by San Jiu, so Li Ju didn't have to worry about it at all. So Li Ju devoted himself to the construction of the school. He opened Li School in the houses, reserved on both sides of the greenhouse, teaching various trades and miscellaneous subjects. The situation in Jinling is better than that in Qingshan City, with both advantages and disadvantages. The advantages that the local teachers and schools do not take Li School seriously. They look down on these crooked ways and do not think that Li Ju is a threat. The disadvantages that it is more difficult to recruit students. After all, families with a little money send their children to take the imperial examinations, and families without money only want to send their children to make money. If a family with a lot of ideas has extra money, they will pick out smart and clever children from poor families as their adopted sons. If they can finish their studies, they will send them to study and take the imperial examinations. At the very least, they will become clerks. If they can't finish their studies, they will keep them by their side to do things, which is more useful than slaves. The source of students was not very good. Li Ju provided a meal, and the students he recruited were all from poor families, and most of them were dull. There were also a small number of not so poor and dull ones, who were very young, and whose parents really couldn't spare the time to take care of their children, so they used Li Ju's place as a nursery. Li Ju asked about the situation of the schools in Jinling City, and learned that the more old-fashioned ones in the schools did not teach pinyin, but those that competed for grades or those that were more exam-oriented had already used pinyin. In addition, the mathematics subjects also taught Arabic numerals and algebra, equations, plane geometry and other mathematical contents. Then Li Ju had no worries, and the Legia school also started with pinyin and mathematics. The source of students was not very good, and the teachers were not very good. The medical department was relatively simple. Li Ju was rewarded by His Majesty the Emperor for his technology in smallpox and cowpox, and he trained a group of doctors who were particularly specialized in surgery and obstetrics and gynecology. People in Jinling knew these things. Li Ju brought a large number of modern and refined Chinese medicine classics from the modern times, which were very impactful and greatly promoted the development of Daang medicine. Li Ju corrected the information that should not exist in these classics, and doctors were required to verify the prescriptions and pulse cases. Therefore, many young doctors in Jinling who have not yet made it are willing to come to Li School to learn new things and teach. Other subjects are not easy. Basic science subjects are the most difficult. There is not a single teacher in the four major categories of biology, chemistry, physics, and geography. Jinling people may have read Li Yuan's miscellaneous textbooks and journals, and have a rough understanding of some new rhetoric, but few people have studied systematically. Without systematic learning, it is easy to lead students astray, and Li Ju dare not use such teachers. The situation of engineering is not ideal either. Those craftsmen that Li Ju wants to recruit value their own skills for a living, and are unwilling to let outsiders learn, and Li Ju cannot force them. Therefore, when the school just opened, the teachers recruited only had some superficial skills, and could only teach basic moves. In addition, the subject of blueprints, which many people believe can help build factories, has been sought after, and many meticulous painters with a craftsman-like style are willing to learn and teach. In this way, relying on Li Ju's own polishing, and the polishing of the entry and master, after a period of basic courses, the students gradually became stratified. Older children always learn faster, while children who are only 4 or 5 years old can only learn to elementary school. After the students' learning progress was stratified, Li Ju had assistants. He selected 2 15-year-old boys as assistants. The newly recruited students had these 2 assistants to lead the learning of the most basic content, and Li Ju gave them an additional assistant subsidy. While the students were laying the foundation, Li Ju gradually recruited suitable craftsmen of other subjects from the countryside, and transferred a few people who were willing to try their luck in Jinling from the school in Qingshan. Finally, he gathered teachers for the 3 science subjects of geography, climate, physics, and agronomy, and entry masters for the 3 major categories of carpentry, painting, and pottery. With a master, Sir Lee's school was on the right track. At least all kinds of technical points could be started. The first thing to be put on the agenda was the drawings. Spinning machines, looms, bicycles, wooden tracks. The industries targeted by Jinling depended on the disassembly of drawings. In particular, Shenyang and other companies with skilled workers were holding their breath, hoping that their skilled workers could make further improvements and strive to defeat the other companies. Then came the steam engine that Li Ju strongly promoted. The difference between Jinling and Qingshan is that the mines near Jinling are relatively large in scale. Further north and west, coal mines gradually appeared. These mine owners are the most innovative, and every link of this has room for innovation. Li Ju's steam engine painted a pie for them. They didn't know whether Li Ju's direction was correct, but the prospect that Li Ju gave was indeed the prospect they wanted to see. So the steam engine locomotive technology point rose immediately after the drawings. After receiving certain support, at least the laboratory could be opened. The third technical point is medicine. The demand for medicine is so strong that Li Ju can open a medical school immediately. There is no other reason. The world is stable, and people have the resources to raise more people, but human life is too fragile. The neonatal mortality rate has even reached 40% at one time. If you add those who die before they are 1 year old, the infant mortality rate will even be a terrifying 60%. Not only is there a big gap in reliable doctors, but there is also a big gap in female doctors and nurses. This directly leads to a surge in demand after the medicine is proven to be effective. Li Ju's warehouse has anesthetics in stock, but there are no qualified anesthesiologists to use them. There is not much difference between anesthetics and murder drugs, so he dare not think about surgery for the time being. He can only urge doctors to make qualified anesthetic powder as soon as possible. The operation of opening the chest, abdomen and skull cannot be carried out for a while. It involves the treatment of the internal organs, so it depends more on traditional medicine. If you rely on traditional medicine, you can't escape the classics copied by Li Ju. It is normal for medical students in Li Garden to gather together for dialectics, and Jinling Li Garden is no exception. The surgery and obstetrics departments, which showed immediate results, were even more popular. After Yu Yaoniang was transferred to Jinling by Li Ju, she immediately took on a life-threatening case, which was to deliver the baby for Master Yu's wife. Master Yu's wife was over 40 years old, a typical old clam giving birth to a pearl. In modern times, she would be a high-risk pregnant woman. She also had heavy bleeding during childbirth, and all doctors said she would die. But she was miraculously saved by Yu Yaoniang. Yu Yaoniang was already famous, and her reputation soared after this. The wealthy families in Jinling and nearby areas who had daughters and sisters who were about to give birth could not wait to invite her to take care of them. The medical fees and travel expenses rose sharply, which greatly stimulated the local people's consciousness of making money. Who doesn't have a daughter-in-law, sister, or daughter? After sending her to study for 2 years, she could save 1,000 taels a year for travel expenses, which was really popular in people's eyes. Therefore, the medical department of Li Yuan is not a technical point, but has become the scale of an independent school. Chapter 375, Sudden Order. Although the development direction is different from what Li Ju thought, it is generally smooth. Now is different from Qingshan City at that time. When in Qingshan, only a few people such as the county magistrate, Huang Zhi, Yufu, and Wang Jiao dared to come to Li Ju's house, and unless there was something that needed to be discussed with Li Ju, they would not disturb Li Ju from concentrating on studying grain. Now in Jinling City, Li Ju's mansion is very lively. Almost every day, someone will come to visit Li Ju. This festival or that birthday, it is inevitable to send a letter of invitation. Flowers bloom, you have to appreciate the flowers. Fish are fat, you have to go fishing. And when beautiful courtesans come to Fengaiyu, you have to listen to the music, highlighting the colorful. In the past, in Qingshan City, Li Yuan had almost no simple female family members to interact with. Even if Zuaning occasionally came to the door, they must be with their husbands, and Li Ju would not be rude to come out to entertain them. Now that Sanjiu has clearly received an official rank, the simple female family members in the back house have gradually increased their exchanges, and it seems more and more complicated. The advantage is that they are very well informed. Something just happened, and it will soon spread throughout the city by word of mouth. Li Ju is an older unmarried young man, and he has nothing to do with the beautiful Zhao Sanjiu. He has a title and wealth. When he was in Qingshan City, Yunnan and his son had already chosen him as their grandson-in-law. Now that his status and position are better, more people are choosing Li Ju for their sisters, daughters, and granddaughters. At this time, the families who had offended Sanjiu by snatching the furnishings of the princess's bedroom felt a little regretful. They needed something from Li Ju, and Sanjiu's position made it too easy to trip them up. In order to make up for the relationship, the women of several traditional weaving families such as the Yang family came to visit Sanjiu every now and then. Fortunately, Sanjiu is not a grudge-bearing person. She has had to deal with them a lot in the past 2 years. By this year, it was as if some of the previous minor conflicts did not exist, and they got along harmoniously. The initial preparations for Jinling City were all on track, and the farming season was not so busy. In order to make more money, many people were willing to take on another job. This year, they had another choice, which was to go to Li School, to take classes and learn something. At first, they were very unfamiliar with the school, until gradually, each wealthy family sent their children, retainers, and shopkeepers to learn blueprints, etc., and some people sent their families to learn obstetrics and nursing. The uniqueness of Li School spread out. When they had a little free time, they took the initiative to come to the door to study. Some were more utilitarian and wanted to learn the skills that could make money directly, and some were more honest and started with literacy classes. Li Ju agreed to all of them. Originally, his school was opened for these people. No matter what their purpose was, the more people who could learn, the better. Just when Li Ju was trying his best to develop the school and technical points, His Majesty the Emperor suddenly issued an order, ordering the 19 provinces and the capital area of the country to select a county as a pilot technical station. During the test period, all expenses of the technical station will be provided by the Imperial Treasury of His Majesty. Now, each province is ordered to select 5 candidates for the pilot project of the prefecture and send them to Jinling to study. At least 3 persons in charge of the technical station of Chengyang Prefecture and above are also ordered to go to Jinling to teach the ideas of Chengyang Prefecture to build a technical station system. Li Ju was very surprised. Not only did he feel that this matter was abrupt, but Chengyang and the third prince also felt very strange. Their father was indeed reckless when he was young, but he became very stable as he got older. His attitude suddenly became so radical. Something must have happened. It seems to be a good thing at present. It was the hottest time of the summer. The 3 of them, along with the mute, Sanjiu, and the palace maids and guards, all wore summer clothes and gauze shirts. They gathered under the big willow tree on the north side of Chengyang's house to cool off. They ate fruits and studied together for half a day, but after all, they did not have enough information and could not figure out anything. Chengyang comforted them and said, "Since it is a good thing, just do it. If this task is done well, whatever system you want can be established. My brother and I can rest assured." The third prince said, "If it really works, Yu Yaoniang's death will not be in vain." He still remembered those things in the north. In his opinion, although he reached out to save people, he failed to save them. It was his negligence. Otherwise, with his status and position, there would be no way he could not save people. Apart from anything else, if he revealed his identity and directly asked to take Yu Yaoniang as his female official, he could also put an end to the plan of the governor of Donglei County. When Chengyang heard him mention the topic, that made both of them unhappy. He hurriedly changed the subject. "I will write to my mother in a while. Such a big thing is related to my fiefdom and the people of Jinling. It is natural for me to ask, and it is not considered as interfering in politics. On the contrary, it is inconvenient for you too. Third brother is getting older and is a capable man. If you ask these questions at this time, I'm afraid that you will be remembered as overreaching. And Mr. Li, I don't need to say anything, right?" Princess Chengyang rarely speaks so clearly, especially to the third prince. She almost said that their family has reached the point where the father is old and the children are in their prime, and there is a possibility of suspicion between father and son. Things that can avoid conflicts between father and son should be avoided as much as possible. Li Ju has always been suspected of various things because of his wealth, stupidity, high martial arts value, and popular support. Chen Guiyang didn't say it, but the people present knew it. It was not convenient for Li Ju to ask more, but it didn't mean that he was not curious. Thank you, princess. I also want to know what exactly caused such a big change. You are too polite, sir. I'm just following the flow. Princess Chen Guiyang smiled brightly, and sure enough, she sent a letter to her mother that afternoon to inquire about the situation. The queen did not hide it from her, and she replied quickly. I still have to thank Li Ju's medical department first. Because of its particularity, medicine has always been the fastest growing discipline besides agronomy. And because it does not have too clear geographical and time restrictions like agronomy, it is the earliest and fastest to expand. The capital is no exception. When the smallpox epidemic broke out in the two provinces of Yanzhou, the imperial doctors had an in-depth contact with the doctors of Li Yuan. At least a few young and promising doctors were impressed by Li Yuan's medical system, and then they spontaneously studied for a while, especially the functions of human organs and other contents that the traditional medical system did not particularly touch on before. They had an extremely in-depth understanding. Among them, 2 people went to study in other places, and this other place of course refers to Qingshan City. At the beginning of summer this year, the 3rd princess, born to concubine Chen, ate some melons and fruits, and sneaked out to play. At night, she developed a severe intestinal abscess, and the inflammation quickly developed into a high fever. On the same day, the imperial physician pronounced her dead. It was not that the imperial physician deliberately exaggerated the severity of the disease in order to save his life. In fact, intestinal abscess was almost a fatal disease in the Yang dynasty. What was the use of anti-inflammatory treatment for inflammation caused by appendicitis perforation? The emperor and the empress were very kind and benevolent to their children. Although the 3rd princess was not born by the empress, and was not the most important child of his majesty, she was also the apple of their eye. The couple and concubine Chen saw with their own eyes that the 3rd princess' life was gradually hanging by a thread. Even if she had the whole world in her hands, she could not do anything about a small abdominal pain. It was really uncomfortable. At this time, one of the doctors who went to Li Garden for further study stood up and said that there was one last way. If it could be confirmed that it was appendicitis, she could still be rescued by laparotomy. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.